911, what's your emergency?
There's been an injury in my illegal fight club.
What's the nature of your emergency?
I'm not supposed to talk about it.
So, audience, you may notice we have a special guest today, and it is a listener that we've wronged in the past, which is part of why we felt like we should bring her on. Kyla,
we're here to make amends. We are here to, clear the air, as
we're here
it were.
to have an open and honest conversation with our community. Yeah, Kyla reached out to us because, for one thing, you said you're writing a paper, right, about like the depiction of Black women in Ryan Murphy shows. Is that it?
Yes. It's for my grad school application and probably my thesis when I'm actually in there.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember when one of my fraternity brothers, like, he watched Glee for the first time and he was like, "Hey, why is Amber Riley like written like that?" And I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know how to answer that question. And then I was kind of like going through everything because, fun fact about me, I've watched every single thing Angela Bassett's ever been in. Like, I consider myself to be an Angela historian. So I've watched all the like things that she's been in with like Ryan Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of realized through that it seems like he is kind of incapable of writing Black women unless, for a lack of better words, that woman could beat his ass. Like, Niecy Nash could very easily break him in two, which is why she's like well written. And I think that Angela Bassett, I think she's very, I hope not with this episode, but I think she's really involved in like how the characters that she's like playing are written. Like, I know in Waiting to Exhale, like the biggest scene there, she's ad-libbing. Like, she's just going off the dome. So she's very involved.
5 straight minutes of improvising that breakdown. It's like
That's
incredible.
And setting a fire. Beautiful.
Well, yeah,
like,
it's like you can't like depict Angela Bassett badly on a TV show, or else like your career will be over and you will hate yourself.
And she's not going to be there.
And she's not going to be there. Yeah. So, I mean, this episode is kind of a bad one to make that, argument with.
Well,
This is one of the ones where she comes off the worst. But generally, yes. And, like, her depiction, like, as a Black woman is, like, certainly not, like, this sort of cruel... The things that we saw done to the character of Mercedes on Glee, for example.
That goddamn Hell to the No song.
Oh, God.
I thought that was a really interesting thing that you brought up, and you were basically asking if you could be on the show. Was the implication that you're going to, like, use this podcast episode on the grad school application?
I'm not going to lie. Yeah, this is going to be a source.
No,
I'm citing myself. I'm going to cite myself.
We're honored. But the other reason we felt obligated, really, is that, of course, you are the commenter who mentioned after our episode where we totally cruelly roasted the band Jukebox the Ghost. You were like, well, I had that song on my wedding playlist. And now it's ruined. So we were like, yeah, sorry about that. We do feel bad about that. You also coined the term Caucasian voodoo.
Caucasian voodoo.
You accused us of practicing Caucasian voodoo in the sense that we accidentally made Bobby die on the show. And, like, to be clear, that was certainly not our intention. But that was first kind of an iconic thing for you to say. And we do feel bad that we sort of invoked that, even if by accident. So after all of this, it just felt like, we kind of owed it to you. And also, you had this interesting project you were working on, and specifically, you thought it would be valuable to have like a Black perspective on this episode specifically. And we totally agree because, oh boy, this is...
It's terrible. It's terrible.
It's bad. This one's, guys, spoiler alert, this is a real bad episode.
It's so bad.
Like, we've talked about propaganda on this show before, but like it's always been in kind of moments, right? It's always been sort of on like a scene by scene basis. This is like an episode that's just like a sort of like a structural fail, like on that sort of level.
This is an
because
entire
it becomes
episode.
the main A-plot of the entire episode.
Yeah, this is an entire episode devoted to the show's like hypocritical, contradictory relationship with the police, and it really lays bare all of the issues seemingly unintentionally, and it's bad. The conclusions we reach are bad, and it kind of opens this horrible can of worms that we can never close again. And therefore, I'm very excited to break it down with you two.
Yeah.
Yay!
We're gonna get through this together, guys. This is going to be an hour, let's be real, 2 hours at least of healing and community.
I named this Zoom call, I think I named it First Respodcast Copaganda Group Therapy, and that's how I'm seeing this session, basically.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. For my notes, I took the notes from my iPad, and I named it Worst 911 Episode Before Season 6. And
that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And like my first note was the director being a white South African person makes everything make a lot more sense.
Oh my god, I didn't even know that.
So yes, let's introduce, this is season 3, episode 5, Rage, which certainly won't come up several million times throughout the episode in a very literal way. Directed by Jan Turner, and looking back on it, that does sound like a white South African name, doesn't it?
No, yeah, I had to find out, because it is written by a Black woman.
Okay.
One of the head writers for this episode is a Black woman.
It was written by Lindsay Bolio.
And I was like, I can't put this entirely on her because, we'll get to it, but there are certain things that are said that I'm like, I only think that a Black person who's had that conversation would know to say that. So I'm like, clearly her input was there, but at the same time, the way it's so deeply toned, I was like, I need to find out who's the director. And then I was like, okay, Elon's sister.
Okay, to be fair, just to not too much on Jan Turner, I just looked her up, and she was born to two anti-apartheid activist parents, and her father.
Sorry, Jan.
And her father was killed in front of her. Her father was killed in front of her when she was 13 years old.
No.
And her family had to flee to Britain due to threats of being banned. So, not too much on Jan Turner. I don't think we can infer that she's necessarily a bad person by being a South African. But I get it is
it's a little bit toned down.
You read that detail and you're like, I should check on that, which we did.
I think it's kind of similar to how with, fun fact, but with the Marvel movies, they're using American military things. They're using their material and their ships and all their stuff. So the military has to okay what they're saying. So you can't be too critical of the US military when you're using their products in your productions. And that's how you have weird, I guess, bland anti-military takes in Marvel productions, because they're not able to actually fully criticize the thing that they are supposed to be criticizing, in the original, comic book,
Yeah, we've talked about this with Justin before, that, you see it on, SVU, too, where, if they're using, NYPD or LAPD resources, and rely on some of those resources to be able to shoot their show, then, there has to be this sort of symbiotic relationship, and that is really frustrating to see play out.
Yeah.
I don't want to fully absolve anyone of any blame here, is my thing. So I don't want to white knight for anyone. I don't want to put all the blame on anyone else other than, and it's the one we all come back to, fuck ass Tim Minear, who okay. So I was doing some internet sleuthing on Reddit and such, and I heard that this was an episode that not only did Lindsay primarily write or was a co-writer on, but she also pitched the storyline, right? She pitched the storyline to Tim. I don't know if that's true for a fact. I haven't seen official sources. That's just what I heard. Okay. That's just what I heard. Allegedly pitched the storyline. And so I do think that the ultimate onus, the ultimate blame to lay on someone is to Tim in the chair, who should have either vetoed the idea or said B, we're going to really, really be careful and tactful with how we're going to depict this. And I do think that, like, if I'm getting into the psychology of this guy, right? This enemy, this dark character of Tim Minear, like I can see from like a white Hollywood liberal perspective that you'd say, oh, we're going to do an episode on police brutality. We're going to have it be written by a black woman and directed by, you know, a anti-apartheid, you know, South African director. Like, then he would like lay back and say, well, my job's done.
Right. That does
Right.
kind of absolve him of any responsibility.
Yeah. It just seemed lazy, you know?
I do think a lot of shows at the time, and still to this day probably, like, feel the need to grapple with such things. And, like, especially at this time, like 2019, I mean, this was pre, like, 2020 when you saw it kind of blow up in the mainstream in a bigger way. But, like, there had still been a lot of really notable cases of police brutality, obviously, that had attracted a wide, like, you know, widespread protest and whatnot. And I feel like, you know, if you watch a lot of shows from the time, like Grey's Anatomy and whatever, we're also starting to be like, let's bring up like police racism and stuff, because they want to be topical and ripped from the headlines and have kind of their finger on the pulse. But as we've said, it's like, if you're not going to take the stance that this is like irredeemable behavior, then you can't really hope to engage with it in a satisfying way. And I think this episode just blows the whole roof off of the kind of suspense of disbelief that Athena can be a cop and be a good person, you know, because the episode makes it seem like that is now impossible. And it's wild to me that they didn't see that that's what they were doing. But maybe we should get into the episode.
It really just we have to get into it, unfortunately. But I just want to say, I just think it was a mistake on everyone's front, because 911 is basically a fantasy if we're being real.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm so sorry. If this was real life, Chimney, he's dead.
Yeah.
Chimney's dead.
Oh, yeah.
Probably all of them
number
would be
two-
dead at this point.
Number one, like, Bobby would not have been hired again. Like,
Probably
Bobby
not.
would not have been hired again. Gerard would have never been fired. Like, I'm so sorry. This is a fantasy show.
Right.
So you don't have to bring in this stark realism
Yeah.
on a show where Chimney just has a little X on his forehead
I
from like
agree.
rebar going through it.
I also think like that's kind of one of my ultimate takeaways. I think I mentioned in my YouTube video about 911 that like I feel like some shows do this where like you have a cop character and you just kind of pretend that we're existing in this fantasy world where cops are fine, you know? And it's like not perfect, but I honestly prefer that to a show, trying to engage with the serious subject matter and totally failing. Like I'd rather they just leave it alone and not even mention that kind of stuff, because I think they make themselves look a lot worse by trying to engage with that.
No, I agree. I do. Before we jump into the episode proper, I do. It's funny, like 25 minutes into the recording session, giving like a content warning for our listeners. But I do want I want to give like a blanket content warning for this episode that we're talking specifically about police violence, institutional racism, and it's a very gross depiction of that too, gross in execution. And I wanted to like point out like something that I heard actually from around this time period too. So back on Broadway in 2019, there was a play called Slave Play that was up and was wildly controversial amongst white audiences and black audiences. And Kim from the YouTube channel For Harriet did a great video talking about the play, talking about why she saw it, what her thoughts on it were. And she mentioned something that I was thinking about when I was watching this episode, which is that, you know, a lot of the reviews of that play when it came out specifically addressed white discomfort in the audience, but very few of them, almost none, addressed black discomfort. And so I just wanted to say, you know, lay the groundwork going into this episode that like in the discussion that we're having here, we want to approach it with sensitivity and with compassion for the subject matter. I just wanted to lay that groundwork and content warning. Let's get into it, guys. Season 3, episode 5.
Okay, I want to bring up the first thing before I even started the episode was that the Hulu description for this episode is, quote, Athena takes action after Michael, May, and Harry experience a traumatic traffic stop. And so
well, no, she didn't.
Yeah, right off the bat, I'm like, no, Hulu, that's not the truth, Hulu. That did not happen. Why would you have that be the episode description? Literally the one thing she didn't do is take action.
Right.
This is an episode about her inaction.
Truly.
Yeah, but this episode, so we begin on a cold open, as the show often does, where these two women are going to a rage room. So I've never been to one of these, but it sounds so much fun. It's one of those rooms in like those facilities where you pay like a certain amount of like money for taking a baseball bat or a sledgehammer and just smash shit. And get out all of your like aggression and violence and like rage and everything in a very controlled environment, right?
Did you guys know the title of this episode is Rage?
Oh my god!
I didn't. I hope there's like 1,000 more name drops of that.
I hope so too, and I'm thinking we might be pleasantly surprised.
Also, I just want to say, I think that the girl who is currently getting divorced, her lashes are way too nice for what they're trying to sell. It was just like very noticeable to me.
Wow.
Like when she's putting on her stuff, I'm like, those are long I'm like, okay, come on, y'all.
Maybe not the best attire for the rage room or for this like kind of like mousy character. Do you think they were
like rubbing up against like that face shield that she had on?
Yeah, like with the length of them, and also she had on like eyeshadow, eyeliner, and I'm like, okay, I feel like they should like put more effort into how they're like doing this. Yeah. Because, like, I get it. They're in, like, this is, like, a set, but, like, come on.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, we have these two women. One of them is, like, getting a divorce, and the other is, like, her best friend. And the best friend is trying to encourage her, like, yeah, let's do the rage room. Like, come on, that guy sucked. And the divorced woman is kind of having trouble getting into it. So the friend is really trying to rile her up. She's like, remember how, he went on that trip to Big Bear, what Big Bear mention? This show loves Big Bear. When you were alone at home with the baby and you had to do all the work, whatever. She's like getting the other woman into it. They're starting to smash things. And then, oh my God, bombshell, the friend is like, and you know how he like makes that stupid sound like a seal when he's having sex? And the woman's like, I never told you that. This has revealed that this woman slept with the woman's ex-husband while the two people were still together. So the best friend turns on her. She's like, I can't believe you've done this. And starts basically trying to kill her with the rage room.
Yeah. Can I just say, I feel like her name was Denise, the one who's a terrible friend.
Yeah. Right.
I feel like she wanted to die. Like,
why would you bring your friend?
Like, either she's a sociopath or, like, she truly wanted to die. And in that case, she should have just let it happen.
Yeah.
Should have just let it happen. Because, of course, Emily, the bereaved woman in this scenario, she the rage takes her. And she starts smashing everything in sight. She starts smashing nearer and nearer and nearer, and it's like, what did you gave her a sledgehammer, and then you Freudian slipped that. Oh my God, like, I don't know what her goal was here, what her angle was here, but this was like a major miscalculation
for this long. But we get to a 911 call. Maddie answers the call, and this woman says, my best friend is trying to kill me.
Can we just say, Jennifer Love Hewitt earning her paycheck this episode? This is her one
scene.
She's
in it for like 1 second. No, there's a montage at the end of the episode where we cut to her for like 1 second, still stalking the domestic violence couple, and you're like, oh yeah, what's going on there? Okay, Maddie has a great line where she says, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. So drink for that.
Of course, drink for that.
And, because the reason she can't hear her is the girl has gotten into a barrel like to hide from the friend, and the friend has like smashed her into the barrel with the sledgehammer. 118 shows up. Athena is already there because I guess this is a matter for the police.
That would be a great way to like torture someone without like killing them, wouldn't it? Just like stuffing them into a barrel and smashing the barrel over and over again.
I think that could kill them.
Oh, she was fine.
She was fine.
I do think in real life they would like rattle your organs and your brain and stuff, though.
Oh, what do you need those for? But,
yeah, you could get some shock injuries probably.
Athena Grant is on the scene. She, takes her only action of the episode and arrests the woman.
Yeah. And takes more action, arguably, on this case than in the case of her family being brutalized by the police, but that's neither here nor there. So they have to get the girl out of the barrel. They're like, we'll saw her out. They have Lena saw her out. I thought this was kind of hot. I'm sorry. Something about a big tough lady with a big saw. I thought it was cool.
And they get her out, and it seems that Denise is genuinely repentant about fucking her husband, and so even though they get her out of the barrel and she's like, I want to make this right, and Athena foreshadowingly says, you want to do something for her, bail her out of jail.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to say this is another moment of me deeply disliking Athena because Denise literally says, I don't want to press charges. Yeah. I fully deserved this. And Athena's like, well, too bad.
Right.
What?
I guess you could maybe make an...
Yeah. We can infer that this woman has a child that's at least 3. So she's arresting a single mother.
Yeah.
Hey, she also arrested See Me Norman lady. So she also arrested Carol Hudson from Glee. So
that's true. Well, Finn's mom almost shot Buck. So
she did almost shoot Buck.
That is true.
Imagine if that's how Buck died, just randomly in season 2 because he was shot by Carol Hudson.
Hey, still a better death than Bobby. But
so
then
true.
So they stuff the aggro lady into the paddy wagon and take the other woman to the hospital, and Chimney says my favorite line from the episode. He goes, I can see why these places are all the rage.
Guys, this episode is called Rage.
I want to kill myself.
I can't believe Kenneth Troy went to my high school.
What? Okay, that's a low drop.
Did you comment this?
Met him.
What?
Yeah,
that's right. I remember this. You commented this. So he went to your high school and you met Kenny Choi. How was he? Was he nice?
He was very kind. I mean, I think my school has, fun fact, I think the biggest broadcasting program in Illinois, and we would do daily shows, news shows, and then radio in the evening. And because of how huge our school, I think we have 4,000 students, and it's 2 buildings, and there's a pond in the middle, and it's a very nice school. When he was coming off of press for Captain America and Wolf of Wall Street, he came and did an interview with our news station because he was like, oh, I'll do something fun for my high school,
right?
And let the kids there interview me. And then I was in the intro class for it at the time, and so he just came over to us and just said hello, and I didn't know who he was. I was like, I think he was in Wolf of Wall Street. I was like,
character actor Kenneth Choi comes to a high school. That's true. If he did that now, maybe some teens know him from 911 just because it has an online fan base. And I guess teens were into Marvel movies, so they may have known him from that.
Yeah. Chimney's for sure my favorite character on this show. And I just want to bring up really quickly, unfortunately, I really deeply hate what they name their child.
We
didn't even get to this point in our season 8 discussion, but yeah, as soon as we finished, I was like, oh my god, we didn't even talk about how they named a baby Bobby Nash.
I'm so sorry, because here's the thing, right when it was announced that they're gonna have another kid in the show, I went on my Tumblr, I made a poll, I blazed it, and I was like, okay guys, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be a boy, let's vote on names. Aww. And I made the first one Daniel Kevin, the next one Kevin Daniel, and then C, a terrible third option, because any other thing would be so stupid.
Yeah, no, that is so crazy. Sorry. Now that you mention it,
they both lost brothers long ago. Maddie spent her almost entire life being forced to forget her dead brother,
right?
And now she's giving her daughter a brother, and it didn't occur to them hey, we should name this kid after Daniel.
It's because Tim Minear is an evil and deranged man.
It's like especially because Maddie is like half of this like parenting household. She's the one that carried the baby. Shouldn't she have some significance with the name? What does she have to do with
never
Bobby?
even really talk to each other that much. I'm sorry.
Did they even like meet? Like in the sense like it's like you stick Bobby and Maddie in like a room alone together, and like they'd be like, have we ever really like properly met?
Yeah, come to think of it, it's kind of like the Eddie and Maddie thing, where like we just don't really get scenes of like Bobby and Maddie. Like they probably talk about each other a fair deal, but like, yeah, it's stupid on a lot of levels. We can't get too caught up in season 8.
I just had to share that because like I still get like notes on that poll, and I'm like, oh god.
Like how naive we once were to think that there was a world where this show, like the character development, would track and make sense. So anyway, Hen and Karen. We cut to Hen and Karen at home.
One of their 2 scenes of the episode. Oh.
Hen has to go to work while Karen is seemingly on bed rest. She's still doing the IVF stuff. And right as they're sitting together, Karen gets an email that 6 embryos have made it in their IVF process. So they're really excited. What could go wrong? Then we go to
let's just take a moment to enjoy this happy moment. This happy domestic
household.
Lesbian bliss moment. They have 6 embryos. They're gonna be
Jenny's
a
gonna
bigger
have a
family.
sibling.
It's gonna be
maybe
so
as many
nice.
as 6 siblings.
Who's to say?
And then we cut to Michael, Athena, and May and Harry at Athena's house. All of them
Want
but
to say
Athena.
really quick? Athena, her sweater, very cute.
Gorgeous.
So cute.
Yes, loved it. They are.
That's what sucks about criticizing Athena, is that her fashion is always on point. So it's
it's like
how
hate
can
Athena,
I criticize
love
a
Angela
diva?
Bassett.
Like,
Yeah.
I have always imagined
diva?
because Angela Bassett's styling on this show, like her clothes specifically, are so incredible and consistently so, and she has kind of such a unique style. I've always suspected that maybe Angela Bassett gets some say on like what her wardrobe looks like, because I don't know, it's kind of different from
I think those are her clothes from home.
It kind of seems that way.
But yes, they're having a Grant family scene, and May is addicted to that phone. May is addicted to that phone.
All of them except Athena are gearing up to go to Grandma's house. I think Michael's mom, it's implied. And
Gigi.
Gigi.
Hello.
So they're going to get on the road in a second. And Michael's like, what about you, Athena? I thought you and Bobby were going to go to a B&B this weekend. And Athena's like, well, we were. But that pesky Buck had to do a stupid lawsuit. And now we're not going anymore. We had to cancel it because there's an arbitration hearing today. Yeah, really bucked that up. There's an arbitration hearing today for the lawsuit. So, Bobby shows up and he's in his cute little uniform. And he says this weird thing where he's like, yeah, well, Michael says, like, yeah, the last time I saw Buck, he was coughing up blood on our patio. And Athena's like, yeah, that he's a sweet kid, but I need to stop inviting him over. Bobby is like, yeah, none of this would have happened if you didn't invite him over. Which, like, clearly he's joking, but it's kind of one of those husband jokes where you're like, hey, watch yourself. Like,
yeah,
none of this is her fault. It is entirely your fault. I don't like that tone. Keep it to yourself.
No, for real. Because, like, the worst part about this episode is, like, slowly realizing that Buck's kind of correct in his lawsuit.
No, literally.
Yeah.
And
he is just right.
This episode in particular makes it, like, seems like it's trying so hard to make it seem like he's in the wrong. Like, I think we talked about this in either the last episode or the one before. They really try to kind of use this whole, like, oh man, he's dredging up all his colleagues' personal lives. They try and use that to be like, wow, he was really in the wrong for the lawsuit. But that's kind of irrelevant to, like, whether the lawsuit is justified, right? Like, that's just an unfortunate consequence of legal proceedings. It doesn't mean his reasons for suing are bad. And I feel like he was in the right, and then he does get what he wants at the end. So honestly, he kind of was justified.
And also, it's kind of correct, because, like, in a way, Buck does get special treatment from Bobby in a way that Buck doesn't really want. Like, it is kind of crazy when you lay it all out. Like, Eddie's, well, I'm not going to say wife because Shannon asked for a divorce. That's his ex-wife. Eddie's ex-wife died. He took 3 days off. Chimney had a rebar through his head back in less than a month. Like, Bobby relapsed, no time off. Hen used to sell the same medication. They're saying that he can't work while using. So like the lawyer just did their job.
It's like Bobby looked into the camera and said, I had to put Buck on longer leave for realism. You could argue that Buck was he went a little bit too far in his methods, or the lawyer was a little bit duplicitous in how he went about it with bringing Bobby's alcoholism into it, because that was a private matter, and so you could argue that was like the step too far. It seemed to be like what the show was implying with like the way it was like framing everyone's reactions to that.
But he's also not wrong that is also a medical condition, and so it is comparable from a legal perspective.
It was case relevant, but like that was the one moment where I was like, I
like
get
going too far. Yeah,
I get why they're pissed at him.
I feel like you can tell that like Buck is like deeply. I think he's surprised in the scene. I also want to say he looks like such a baby in
oh my god!
Okay,
he looks so handsome.
To be clear, we have moved on to the next sequence, which is the arbitration. Very social network. We're just like cutting to each character being interrogated essentially by this lawyer, getting cross-examined, And yes, I wrote in my notes, Buck looks like a pathetic, starving orphan in this scene. Why does he look so frail? It's partly Oliver Stark's performance. He's giving all these great, just like sad, kicked puppy looks, like looking like up through his eyelashes at every character. He looks so sad. He looks so sad and embarrassed the whole time. And something about the suit they've put him in, maybe it's just because it's an earlier season, like before Oliver Stark had bulked up. He looks tiny. Like the clothing makes him look small. And so props to both like the costume department and like the DOP, because something about either the way they styled him or the way they shot this makes him look small, which is impressive because he's a very big man.
I'm not going to lie. This suit was, this is just my 2025 brain poisoning because the world is horrible now. But like something about this suit and like the styling of his hair, I was getting like that, like sort of like white nationalist influencer guy vibes from the styling.
That in my head.
Oh my gosh, no!
Not every white man in a suit is a white nationalist.
Look at
he
no,
looks
I'm not
too
saying
pathetic
Buck
and sad
is.
to be
That's
white
how he looked.
Princess Diana.
Exactly, and he is. And he is. That's Princess Diana.
That's
Princess Diana, like in divorce court.
Eyelashes.
In the year of our Lord 2025, that is like a Ben Shapiro dream right there.
Okay, never.
That's season 5 of The Crown. That's season 5 of The Crown.
It's like the way
and he looks like Charles.
Yeah, no, the way he's so effortlessly. Shut up. The way he's so effortlessly adorable is very Princess Diana. Okay.
No, for real. I literally wrote down the lyrics to that song. I was like, "Pretty little baby, I'm so in love with you." Like he's just such a baby.
Well, and we're going through every character, and all of them are getting their dirty laundry brought up, which again, like, yeah, I don't think they're wrong to bring up. They bring up all these other characters' past injuries and sort of things that have kept them from doing their jobs. So like you said, Eddie losing his ex-wife, and Bobby's alcoholism, and Chimney getting
like his rebar
and being stabbed.
The lawyer says that Chimney's talking about his like recovery from the rebar incident. He's like, wow, that's almost miraculous. And I'm like, yeah.
Well,
that is. It's just like that's what everyone can say about it. Like it was a miracle. Oh, I love TV.
Just a miracle.
But yeah, the stabbing thing too. Like he got a month off of work for those like moments where he almost died and had traumatic physical injuries.
And
but
like
because
I can see,
Buck is on blood thinners,
I can see their side of it because they are. Bobby has a line where he's like, Buck has a chronic medical condition, and that is true. It's a little different than like an injury that you can heal from in a very linear way. It's like this is a thing that he might have to be on indefinitely. But what's really funny is they bring up Hen being a farmer rep to try and be her gotcha. They're like, this is a brochure for the medication that he's on. You used to push this very medication when you were a farmer rep, and you would specifically say that it would allow patients to return to a normal life. And it's that one of those lawyer things that's like so stupid, but like technically he technically has a point, but it's so silly.
No, yeah.
It was
kinda
funny,
not
and
wrong.
I appreciated that moment too because it brought Hen Begins into the narrative, which was necessary because that didn't
The
happen.
first time
had all
that
kind of
episode ever mattered again.
Exactly. So
They see, a throwback, right?
So they dredge up everybody's dirty laundry, including, we find out this is actually the first that Chimney has heard about Bobby relapsing, which he did in season 1. Like, Chimney wasn't there when that happened and had never actually heard about it. So, like, yeah, it sucks that, like, that got brought up when it was a private matter. But I do think, like, he's not wrong that that was also a chronic condition. And that even though the relapse happened, like, outside of work hours, like, I mean, we know from his past experiences that, like, if something like that happens, it could affect his work life and his performance. And so I don't think it's totally unfair to, you know, it's emotionally rough, but it's a valid thing to bring up. But obviously the 118 are totally turning on Buck, kind of understandably. And so after this sequence, we see them, like, loading into an elevator, and then Buck approaches, like, trying to also take the elevator, I guess, and Chimney, like, pushes the closed doors button, and that's the end of that. It's like the final shot of 50 Shades of Grey, actually.
Oh my god, literally.
Oh wow.
Right? It's like the same shot. But we cut to the second most cruel and weirdly politically charged part of this episode, which is kind of goes under.
Before we get into that, I do want to say really quickly, for whatever reason, at the end of that scene, I wrote down "rest in piss" for 2 seconds, Bobby. I just felt like he was being very mean to.
No, yeah, this whole thing, I think I can understand that it hurt everybody's feelings to have their stuff dredged up. Like, I doubt that was a fun experience. I also think Bobby kind of mishandled this situation from the beginning, and I do think this could have been avoided had Bobby handled it better. And so, yeah, I don't really think he has the right to be that upset about all this, frankly.
It was very blatant to me that this case was, like, airtight because, like, Buck is just kind of unironically in the right on all of these fronts. So that was honestly surprising to me.
And it's a little frustrating because the show seems reluctant to frame it that way.
They go from that to Instagram Live again, throwback to season 2 finale.
And we've got a rather mean depiction of a rather mean straw man. We've got these, like, eco activists who are all these, like, young kids, frankly made to look stupid by this entire scene and sequence.
Youth PETA, we can call them.
I guess they're like storming, and it's not that I think PETA is, like, a perfect organization, but this depiction felt very, like, unnecessarily just, like, making fun of, I don't know, animal rights
vegans
activists
or something,
eco activists, people who, like, probably morally do have an advantage over the whatever. So it's,
I need to know what Oliver Stark thought about this episode.
Literally, I bet he was watching it like, I should quit my job. Anyway, it's these eco activists are, like, storming a slaughterhouse, essentially, that kills
a duck
ducks.
Farm. Yeah.
It's a duck farm. And they're like, these poor innocent ducks are going to get loaded into this thing, so we are going to chain ourselves to the machine, like one of those kind of rotating, like the thing that, like, lifts up the animals, I guess, and brings them to the slaughter. They're like, we're going to chain ourselves to these with bike locks, which they do. And, you know, the owner of this thing comes out and starts yelling at them. And one of their people starts, like, pouring, I don't know if it was, like, syrup or something, like pouring molasses or something
like oil or something like that.
Maybe
just something
oil,
to make it, like, very
like
unusual.
gasoline.
Yeah, something to mess
Horrible
up. He starts pouring
idea.
that on, like,
the
the electrical controls of this machinery. And so it starts malfunctioning. It starts, like, going. It turns on. And these people start getting choked because the bike, for some reason, they decided to chain themselves, like, around their necks with bike locks instead of just, like, around their arms or something.
It was, like, symbolic, like, oh, we're the ducks. Like, you wouldn't
Like,
string us up like that.
Right.
Like,
so they start, like, choking. They have to call 911. The 118 shows up.
It's like a goddamn saw trap this guy is
It is a bit
in,
like
you
a
know?
saw trap. And this would be perfect if if there was, like, a duck farmer who had killed millions of ducks, and Jigsaw's like, you will see that you are now chained into.
You will see that you are now chained.
You are now chained into the duck slaughterhouse.
You will now
machine.
feel what it feels like to be a duck strung up on the assembly line. Or I don't know.
That's a really good jigsaw.
Oh, thank you. My impressions are getting attention on this pod.
We also
Actually, I think the last time I did an impression was also when we had Justin on last time.
Yeah, you did your Gollum impression in front of Justin. This is just like Ryan starts pulling out all the impressions when we have a guest he wants to impress.
What can I say? What can I say?
Exactly. He's a born
I'm a regular
performer.
I'm a regular Sam Evans like that, you know?
We find out that one of the kids swallowed the key to the bike
lock.
Like,
God.
they're like, where's the key? He says, I swallowed it. And I love that they're like, okay, that was never a part of it. We never said we were going to do that. But finally, you know, they get the bolt cutters, they cut this thing, and
I will say it was an interesting like thing because first of all, like the girl that he's with, like they didn't talk about swallowing the key. He just like did that rogue. But like also like they give this justification of like, why can't you just shut off the power? And he says, well, then we'd have 1,400 duck carcasses that are just rotting. And it's like, I guess I didn't quite know what to make of that because I'm like, I feel like the firefighters wouldn't care about this guy losing his stock. You know, they would probably just shut it off.
Well, it's probably just Tim Minear really like appreciating the like duck killing industry.
Yeah, Tim Minear like comes from a family of duck.
This man can't lose his product. What about his livelihood? What about his son who will go up to direct 911? No.
Imagine. But the kid starts choking on the bike lock key. Like it kind of comes up in his throat. It like tears his trachea. He's coughing up blood. And the slaughterhouse guy goes over and shuts off the power. So everybody's like, wait a minute, you could have just shut this thing off the whole time. And it's implied that he was like kind of trying to teach the kids a lesson. So Bobby goes into a rage. Title of the episode. He does that thing that we haven't seen probably since season 1, Bobby, where he gets really mad and he's like, you mean you could have shut this thing off the whole time? It's because, you know, Bobby has stuff going on. His baby boy is trying to sue him.
I love it when Bobby gets like, he gets worked up. It's so funny.
Yeah, he gets worked up over this and, you know, it becomes a more serious situation because the kid is choking, but they manage to get the key out of his throat. He's fine. But it's like, I know that like, I guess the scene makes the slaughterhouse guy look bad too because like he was being a dick and not, you know, endangering the kids' lives by not shutting off the thing. But I feel like the ultimate butt of the joke of the scene are these kids who are trying to stop animals being slaughtered in factory farming. And I just feel like there's kind of no reason to be so mean-spirited about something like that.
I really think this is like kind of like a toxic centrist scene. I feel like it's kind of a toxic centrist episode,
I was
to be
gonna
honest.
say, like, it's just such annoying, like, both sides.
We make fun of everyone.
It's just like, I don't know, the farmer guy, all he got was annoyed and then pushed against like a wall,
right?
Yeah. Like
and that kid almost died.
It's like South Park style, like, you know, both sides are bad. You know, they're both being
Everybody
aggressive
sucks.
and stupid. And like, in fairness, they do paint the farmer to be a really bad guy. Like when the kid, like an actual seeming child, is choking up blood, he says, "Please don't let him die on my property." Like it's like one of those like really like evil, like he's kind of straw man too of these like horrible farmers, right?
I guess, yeah.
But like it does seem like the ultimate butt of the joke is these stupid kids who are taking their activism way too far. Hermione should chill about the elf slavery at Hogwarts, you know? To spew or not to spew, right? Kind of like almost like the perfect scene to sum up everything wrong with this episode.
Yeah, the whole episode is just so politically like, what is this? But speaking of which, cut to Sucker by the Jonas Brothers needle drop. Odd choice for this scene,
I just want to say, literally, why? Why?
What was the reason?
Why?
They're listening. They're listening to Radio Disney. They have Harry in the car. You know?
Maybe.
Why Sucker specifically?
Michael is in the car with May and Harry. It is now nightfall. Everybody's having a good time. Harry is sleeping in the back. He's in a food coma.
Alluded to this earlier. May is addicted to that phone. Like there isn't a scene in this episode where she is not on that phone. We saw it earlier. Okay? She is the most Gen Z. She's
on that phone. She's probably on TikTok, whatever. And
do you think she was a Musical.ly girly back in the day? Back when Musical.ly was a thing?
Maybe she's on Musical.ly. They're having kind of an idyllic car ride. Like May passes Michael a cookie that they got from Grandma. And then a cop car shows up behind them and pulls them over. And I wrote in my notes, God, this scene stresses me out. It's just deeply unpleasant to watch. It's a very just like rough, because this scene itself is not like, we haven't gotten the commentary on it yet. This is just like a pretty, I think, realistic, if anything, like they got out pretty lucky for like how these situations can go down, right? And so it's like, it's a very just harrowing thing to watch depicted in a TV show, because what happens is they get pulled over. We've got two cops. There's an older one and like a young rookie one, both white. The older one is kind of taking charge of this situation. He
walks out of the car. He already has his hand on his gun.
And so he asks Michael to get out of the car, even though this is like the most minor thing in the world. He like stopped. He pulled him over for what, like outdated tags, he said, or something.
I mean, it's just one of those excuses, you know what I mean? It's like totally they'll make up any excuse. It's like, do you know how fast you were going, or something like that.
Right.
You know, it's like one of those lines.
So, like, Michael hands over his license and registration. He's very intentional about saying, like, I'm going to reach over to the glove box now. And they have him step out of the car for no reason, right? There's no reason they need to do that, but they make him step out of the car. They make him put his hands on the car and, like, walk back so that they can walk back to their vehicle. And he starts asking, you know, why did you pull me over? Why are you doing this? And when he tries to move, they, like, slam him onto the car. So it's getting physical. May starts filming, which is a good instinct, but also immediately I was afraid for her, for like, she like gets out of the car and like is kind of making sudden movements and you're like worried about her. And the absolute crescendo of this is that Harry wakes up to all the commotion and moves in the back seat, just like gets up, right? Sits up, and the younger cop pulls his gun and points it at Harry, like sees that there's a third person and goes like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And that's like, it's like genuinely very scary to watch. And just like, because Harry's like 10, he's a really little kid. And, you know, Michael at this point, obviously both May and Michael are freaking out. Michael tells them, panicked, that his wife is a sergeant. He's like, we have a cop in the family, whatever, Athena Grant. And the older cop finally lets them go, kind of touches base with the rookie. He's like, whatever, it's okay. And tells them that they can go. And it's so crazy because, you know, like the family are clearly totally traumatized. You know, they thought Harry was going to die for a second, but the cops just get to like drive away like nothing happened. They get to be like, have a nice night. And so, you know, they all like hug each other, and that's the end of the scene.
I deeply wish that man would get vaccinated because he did something very good with a terrible scene.
Oh, yeah. Oh my God. His performance in this episode was incredible.
I was thinking this whole episode is like, as much as it's a terrible episode for so many reasons, this is like Michael's best episode, right?
It's Michael's best episode.
Which is kind of tragic, but also, you know, it's because he is so clearly in the right throughout this episode, and Athena is so clearly in the wrong. And Michael is the only one who actually wants to stand up for their family and their kids and like his humanity. And we see him like grappling with this very difficult question of like, how do I impart this knowledge on my son, even though I want to protect his innocence? Like, it's a very rich journey that Michael is going on in this episode. And then you cut to like, Athena and she's like, it's not all cops, May. The good outnumber the bad. It's like, my God.
No, it's genuinely a career. So I haven't seen Rockman's filmography. But
it's certainly a 911 best for him.
Yeah. For honestly, for like most of the cast, I'm like struggling to think of like a better performance in an individual episode than Rockman in this episode.
Because they don't usually have to do stuff this like real world serious on the show.
This scene, like you watch it and like it's absolutely harrowing. You are firmly in Michael's shoes, and the perspective is very much correct in that sense. I don't know how anyone could walk away from this scene with any like notion other than that these people, these cops, are terrorists. This is literally terrorism. So that's what makes it so hypocritical in my like from like where I'm sitting watching, that the show was like unwilling to acknowledge that fact, you know what I mean? Or at least on a structural level, because it's not like, I mean, like Athena, you know, we'll see later, like pulls out a few bad apples argument that we've
hashtag not all cops
run to the ground. And it's like the show isn't willing to push back that, like, you know, a cab.
Or just like perhaps it's an institutional problem. They don't seem to even be able to grapple with that.
And it's so crazy because they literally paint it out to be an institutional problem on the show. And like the main note I kept making this episode was that it should not have been made. Yeah. Like, they're not able to take a definitive stand, and you can't both sides this issue. It's just an objective wrong.
Yeah.
And so because of that, you're just number one, it's just an assassination of, like, Athena's character.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so sorry. Truth time, I've done, like, 4 watch-throughs of this show. Yesterday was the first time I watched this episode.
Wow.
I just simply refused.
Yeah. It's a very difficult one to get through.
I was like, I'm just not gonna watch it. Like, this one and Eddie Begins, I always skip.
Literally, no, you get
that's
it.
That's valid. I've seen a lot of people on Reddit and on Twitter talking about how, like, when they do 911 rewatches, they always skip this episode because it's just one of those completely, like from all angles, unpleasant to watch experiences, because it makes you really dislike Athena, and it's also really just sort of makes you dislike the show, which is unfortunate, because there are like good moments in this episode, like a lot of individual good moments, like the grocery store or the talk, like those are good scenes, but they're completely bogged down by this massive elephant of this really like horrific, depiction and failure to fully condemn it, so it's a very difficult scene to watch. I was actually, when I was watching this episode, I was like reflecting back on, like, not to make it about me, but guys, let's talk about me.
Let's go.
I was comparing and contrasting from an event when I was a kid. I was in kind of Harry's shoes because my parents were driving home from a party, and me and my big sister were in the car, and I was asleep, and she was, I guess reading a book or whatever. I don't know. We didn't have phones back then, because we were born in the 1960s. My dad got pulled over because he was driving drunk, and
actually,
like, yeah.
Wait, what?
Oh yeah, So I was in the back of the car, and I woke up to like my mom crying, and my dad like doing the whole like driving under the DUI testing, like field testing for it. And
that's how Molly Shannon's mother and sister died.
Really?
Yeah, her dad was driving drunk, and then they got into a car accident.
Oh Jesus! Well, wow. maybe it's good that the cops arrested my dad then, because my dad was driving drunk. They found out he was driving drunk, and he got a DUI, and he was arrested. And my mom had to drive us home, and we didn't speak about it. He didn't actually talk to me about it properly for another 10 years. But I was thinking about it was a moment of me reflecting on my own privilege in that moment, because how differently that situation would have gone if we weren't white, if we were black, if we were Latin.
Well, yeah, it sounds like they had an actual reason to pull over your dad.
Right.
On some level. Yeah.
And I was putting myself in Harry's shoes, and I was thinking about how awful this experience must have been for him specifically,
well, just
the confusion.
And you see
because in the episode, he literally says is dad gonna go to jail?
Yeah.
And he's too young to even really understand a lot of elements of this.
And it's just so terrible to see the genuine fear he has, the deserved anger that May feels.
Yeah.
And then you turn and then see Athena just no. Well, we can't say that the cops are bad because I'm a cop and I understand that they were scared.
On that note, let's talk about this following scene, because the family gets back to Athena's house.
This following scene.
Athena is serving a masterclass in gaslight gatekeep girl boss, because she is will not concede that something bad happened to them and it was the cops' fault, and that it was a product of racism. She's taking the cops' side, and she just seems to be of the mindset that they were just scared, and all of this is rational. And she even blames Michael at one point. She's like, well, arguing with the cop wasn't a very good idea. And it's like, oh my God, Athena?
He didn't argue with the cops. He was literally asking questions.
Why he was pulled over. And like, you know, this idea, which we see a lot with cops, this idea that like, if you dare to question their authority at all, then you deserve to like be killed or almost killed is insane. Like, you know, these people who, you know, their whole thing is like protect and serve, that these are just these like trigger happy, gun crazy people who will shoot you on sight if you don't like immediately acquiesce all of your autonomy, all of your, you know, you can't possibly, they're like the only profession where you can't question them or you deserve to die, basically. And it's like, Athena saying that was one of the worst things she says in this conversation, but she says a lot of bad things. Yeah,
I mean, I would honestly say it's one of the worst things she says in the show.
Yeah.
Like,
unforgivable.
Like the real nadir of her character in this scene. Something that I do appreciate in this scene is that we do have another voice of dissent from May.
Yeah.
A very well articulated voice of dissent from May. And like, you know, Athena's responding to it, of course, like, my insolent child is, you know, questioning me. But like May again is unambiguously in the right.
Well, that's kind of what makes it worse, though, right? Is that, yes, May and Michael in this scene are obviously in the right to like any rational viewer. And yet, and the show even frames it in that scene like they're in the right, basically. But the show never really has Athena go on that journey. They never have her find any kind of justice for her family, let alone like stop being a police officer. But like they don't even do the baseline of like, oh, you know, like the TV show kind of drama thing where it's like, I'm gonna take this to the chief and I'm gonna get these police officers fired. That doesn't even happen. Literally no consequences happen for these cops by the end of the episode. And I feel like that's the other way that they could have brought this around a little bit. Like, anybody who's truly anti-cop knows that, like, there's no, like, this is an institutional problem deeply rooted, and like you can't like do any band-aid fix that's gonna fix it. Like, you can't just fire a few bad apples and have it be fixed. But like on a TV show in fiction, at the very least you could be like, okay, by the end of the episode we're gonna bring about this unrealistic justice and have these guys actually get fired. That doesn't happen, and that's really weird.
Happen.
And I think it's almost worse in this scene that May is so clearly right and Michael is so clearly right, and yet it's not reflected in the narrative of the show.
They give a disproportionate amount of screen time and voice to the emotions of these rando racist cops. Through Athena,
to the younger one,
but like even to the older one, the
younger one believed the ginger propaganda,
right? Like
he was like, "I'm actually in community with you, so I really understand."
I'm a minority.
For context, the younger cop is a
ginger.
Yes.
But you know, he's also on Twitter complaining about ginger side when they cast Halle Bailey as Ariel. You know,
Why is it always the ginger characters? But yeah, Athena defends the cops by saying, "But they didn't fire their weapons. It was just a bad stop. They happen," which is such an insanely like gaslighty way to minimize the experience that her family just had. I wrote in this part of my notes, this is the best Michael episode because he is so in the right here. Athena says
it's so insane that he's going to get a brain tumor and this is his best episode.
Yeah, let's talk about it. But Athena says they'll file a complaint and start an investigation. And of course, Michael is like, well, we both know like nothing's really going to come of that, right? Which is literally what happens in the episode. So yes, May is very indignant, as she should be. Athena says the cops did it because they were afraid and they overreacted. You guys, won't someone think of the tiny baby cops? They're just so afraid. Oh my God.
I hope they die.
She says, I also hope they die. Athena she is empathizing with the cop experience because she's a cop. And she says, you know, it's not as simple as pick a side. She's trying to... There's this exchange where May says to her point blank, she asks, how can you be a cop when they treat black people like this? And I feel like that kind of hits the nail on the head, right? Like that's the great contradiction with all of this. And it's so I feel like that's why this entire episode was a mistake, is once you put that into words, you can't really justify your Black lead character being a cop. I feel like they just made a mistake here, because now that we've heard that put into words, it just doesn't make sense anymore. And Athena responds to this by saying, "It is not all cops, May. The good outnumber the bad."
She
we
says,
have no
like,
evidence of that on the show.
Oh, none. There's no statistical evidence for that either, by the way.
No,
but
quite the contrary.
She says, you know, the line, like, the police are not the enemy, and it's like, it's really hard to argue that point when, you know, we just saw what we just saw, especially hot off the heels. And what's interesting about this is that, like, I was having a conversation with one of my coworkers, because she's Afro-Latin, and she comes from a big cop family, and she holds dissenting beliefs in that regard. Whenever she has a conversation with, like, her family members about this, like, something strange happens where, like, they defend the police and, like, the institution of policing to the point where it feels like overcompensating. These are her words. It's kind of a strange phenomenon that makes the scene feel realistic to me, where Athena is in this sort of denial. That's just very unfortunate, especially with how
it's almost kind of like brainwashing.
Yeah,
like she's like spent so many years convincing herself as to why it's okay that she's in this profession, that, like, she's unable to, like, mentally handle another truth. Well, the actual truth.
Yeah, that's a good point, though, because she is repeating, like, the very sort of on-the-nose talking points that everyone uses when they defend the cops. You know, she says point blank, she says, like, it's not all cops. She says, like, it's not us versus them. The good outnumber the bad. It's very, it does feel like she's been shown many presentations over the years about, like, this is why the anti-cop movement doesn't make sense or whatever. And then Michael says, like, you know, tell your colleagues that if it's not us versus them. And again, it's just a tough one, because this conversation places Athena so clearly in the wrong and her family so clearly in the right, but the show just can't truly grapple with that. So it remains unsatisfying, unfulfilled, incomplete. Ugh.
It's unfortunate that it's almost like the wrong medium to have this conversation, because of the production limitations that we've talked about, like, where you have to, on some level, bend the knee to the police force if you want to film on location. Like, I want to like say, like, on some level they were, like, trying, like, with the amount of voice they gave to Michael and May in this scene, but, like, it just really leaves, like, a really bad taste in your mouth how much, especially the perspective of this storyline, skews to Athena, and so little is especially placed on May and Harry in the aftermath of this. We don't really see almost any scenes of them coming to terms with this, because they were the other parties involved, and Athena wasn't even there, you know?
But on that note, we go to Eddie.
Christopher's here.
It's like I'm sorry, but it kind of adds insult to injury for me that this terrible episode with this terrible cop storyline is also the beginning of, kind of in many ways, the beginning of Eddie being a very poorly written character, in my opinion. Because, like, rewatching season 2, I realized, like, okay, Eddie's not that bad in season 2. Like, the writing isn't that bad. It's more that they just don't give him a lot to do in season 2. We're just getting to know him. All we really know is that, like, he has this son and he's, like, having his wife drama in season 2. Season 3 is, I think, where they really start to show that they don't know what to do with this man. And we're about to get into it. So Eddie is dropping Christopher off at a sleepover birthday party, which is what a crazy tone shift for this episode to take. I'm sorry. I'm realizing, I'm like, oh, Eddie's at the zoo dropping off Christopher. Okay.
It also, I just want to say, I truly wish that Eddie stayed friends with this mom.
Right?
She was so cool.
Yeah.
And I was like, I love Tasha. I love
Tasha too. No, I was totally thinking that too, because Eddie is dropping Chris off with, like, the mom who's hosting the party, and we had a funny line about Eddie's like, did you get my emails? And Tasha's like, yes, very detailed. So, like, you know, Eddie's being like a little helicopter dad, like, trying to make sure Chris is okay because he's been having the nightmares. And I wrote in my notes, this is probably the only time we ever see Eddie like having community with other parents. And that would have been a nice kind of grounding element to have continue. But no, this is like the last time we ever see this, I'm pretty
and
sure.
You see that with other parents on the show too. I mean, how many scenes have we had of Madney and Henren having an integrated dual like family system, right? Like with like all of our kids are all friends and we're all friends and we're all gonna hang out. Like I don't even know that like Christopher and Denny even like met. Like
I think we do like see
I think
them
there's
hanging
one
out in the
episode
background occasionally.
Yeah, I think there's one episode where like I think something's going on with Chris, and then Hen specifically brings Denny over for them to hang out.
I think there's like some implication that they're buds, but yeah, in general, like I'm always saying, I think Eddie needs more female friends. I think he I think the show brings out shades in him that I like whenever he gets a female friend.
He needs to queen out.
Lena stuff,
he needs to queen out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like when he starts working at Dispatch and suddenly he's like friends with May and Linda, like that's really fun.
So fun.
And even this friendship with Lena, I think it kind of has good and bad sides because it's sort of walking this line of like, is she a love interest or is she just his female friend? But even that, I like seeing him just kind of have a friend who's a woman and not Buck, who he's secretly in love with. Sorry. So we get this weird moment where, Christopher goes off to his party and Eddie is going to get back in his truck when this guy shows up and gets mad at Eddie for parking in the handicapped spot. He's like, oh, like big guy parking in the handicapped spot. I just had knee surgery and I need the handicapped spot. But, good thing you have it. And Eddie's like, well, I just dropped off my son. He has CP. Like, leave me alone. Cut me some slack. And this guy's like, oh, I'm sure you're just like those guys who like put a dummy in their passenger seat or whatever. This guy's very inflammatory. Eddie starts getting mad and we just see like Eddie get mad and then we cut to Lena bailing Eddie out of jail. So
I need to talk about this man for a second.
I love how they just didn't
Me
shoot.
too.
I'm sorry, wait. I love how they just didn't shoot the money shot of Eddie punching the guy. We have to just find out via context clues.
because he got a leg brace. He's like, oh, we can show that horrific scene of police violence at a traffic stop, but we can't show a guy with a leg brace getting hit.
I don't think they chose. I don't think they chose not to shoot it because they thought it was like un-PC. I think they chose not to shoot it because they didn't want to like spend the time and effort and money to like do a fight stunt scene.
Which
That's
is even funnier.
Especially with all the stupid fights in this episode.
True.
Yeah.
It's very
they had
odd.
to go they already reached their fight budget limit and they're like, well, we'll cut corners where we can.
I guess it could have been just like a creative decision to like, oh, it'll be funnier if we do like a smash cut to the jail thing. But I felt like it was kind of weird to not see that moment. But yeah, what were you going to say about this guy?
Well, I'm obsessed with this guy because he seems to have like a legitimate grievance, right? Like he has a leg brace and he has to park 3 rows back and his day is harder and he sees this guy with no discernible handicap in sight.
And to be fair, Eddie does drive one of those big
over.
asshole pickup trucks.
Yes, so he's a perfect guy to, be a little mean to. But this guy, like, I saw him and I'm like, wow, the birthday boy found out because I'd like to do a dramatic reading if I may.
Okay.
A period accurate dramatic reading because on August 13th, 2019, Twitter user @PissJugTycoon tweeted, I dated a 5'8" guy who'd taunt every jacked 6'3" bro he met until they'd pull their fist back to beat him up. Whereupon my ex would go, hey, come on. I'm a little guy. I'm just a little guy. No, it's also my birthday. I'm just a little birthday boy. And it somehow always worked. Well, guess what? In this situation, it didn't. The birthday boy found out. And isn't that beautiful?
That's a good point. It is a little like that.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Tiny bit.
And so Eddie beat his ass.
Allegedly. We didn't see it happen. That is allegedly what happened. So yeah, Lena has bailed Eddie out of jail. We find out that, she's a little taken aback at like, why did you call me? But Eddie says he didn't want his abuela to find out and he can't talk to Buck because of the lawsuit. So sad. Divorce era. And yes, we find out that Eddie punched the guy. And that's kind of it. We cut to Buck meeting with his lawyer. because his lawyer has told him he has big news.
Well, it's
And the
actually,
big
it's a funny
news-
smash cut. It's a funny smash cut because Alina goes like, I hope this guy doesn't have a lawyer. Smash cut to Buck's
Right.
lawyer.
Buck's lawyer. Yep, very intentional. He has rushed over because the lawyer said he had big news. And it turns out the big news is that the city wants to settle for like millions of dollars. So the guy has like a sheet of paper with a number on it. He's like, this is what the city will pay you. And we hear that it's in the millions. But Buck, of course, is like, I didn't do this for money. I just want my job back. He's not satisfied with this result.
Stupid.
He just wants
He's
so
very
dumb.
stupid. He's
Yeah.
very dumb. But to be fair, it's like the lawyer did, and I guess, again, we're supposed to assume that Chase, the ambulance chaser lawyer, is very unscrupulous, very whatever, duplicitous, because, you know, he made it seem to Buck that this would be a route to get his job back. And now he's saying like, well, this is probably the best offer you're going to get. Like now he's acting like there's no chance that he'll get his job back. But Buck says, this doesn't feel like winning. Because of course.
You understand Buck's point of view because like if he took the money, he'd have money but no friends, and we saw what that did to Elon Musk.
Also his life, you know, as we've learned from these past few episodes, like his life's joy and, you know, purpose in life was all revolving around being a firefighter. So if he doesn't have that, like no amount of money would satisfy him.
And also he would be written out of the show, and we can't have that. So
Exactly. The adventures of rich boy Buck doing nothing at home all day, that would not be a good TV show.
except
Although I would
fucking
probably
Eddie
still watch it if
Nasty
it
on the
starred Oliver
couch.
Stark.
Yes.
Fucking Eddie Nasty on the couch would be a recurring segment, so that would be good.
Buck becomes Eddie's sugar daddy. I would watch that.
I would watch that, but Buck is so stupid though because there's like there's a moment where like he's confronting his lawyer and about the alcoholism stuff, and he says, I told you that stuff was information, not so you would use it. What happened to attorney-client privilege? And the lawyer goes, okay,
like,
that doesn't work how you think it does.
did Buck think he was just like having therapy sessions with his lawyer? Like, why did he think he was telling him that?
And also, most importantly, Buck was there when the lawyer was bringing it up.
Yeah,
like,
right.
no matter what, dude, you were sitting there.
He was
sitting
complicit.
there looking cute and pathetic and
Yeah.
tiny and like itsy bitsy in the chair, looking
In the
up
white
for your
nationalist
eyelashes like
suit,
Princess
yeah.
Diana. Like
Uh-huh.
Princess Diana. Like Princess Diana. And
It's not like he said anything in the moment.
like he didn't, and obviously, you know, it's because he's just dumb.
He's
Like,
just a little guy. It's also his birthday. But yeah, it's such a funny moment where like Buck got way in over his head, and it's so clear, like, you know, does he have an airtight case? Yes. Did he think this through? Absolutely not. Are you kidding me? He was, I mean, like completely taken advantage of by this vulture, who you know, presumably would take a cut of that millions, and like it's
like that lawyer
insane.
had no reason to get Buck his job back. Like he had no reason to do that, because then what's he going to get paid?
It's like you know, those like health insurance companies where it's like, we'll pay for this, you know, highly, you know, expensive surgery that will cure you, or we'll pay for a wheelchair. We'll take the wheelchair. You know, like the inverse of that. We'll maximize our profits. But yes,
So
that,
Buck
it basically
has
ends on that sour note, right?
Yeah, Buck played himself, and now he's
Congratulations, you played yourself.
You played yourself.
Yes. So we cut to Athena at the police station. Yay, aren't we all glad to be back to this part of the episode? So fun.
Yay.
Athena's at the police station. She's watching the body cam footage of the traffic stop. This moment is crazy because her boss walks in and asks her, like, are you sure you want to watch that? And I was like, she has a right to watch this. Like, why are you like, it was just one of those things that like, she was acting like it came from a place of concern, but it felt to me like in real life, if somebody in that position said something like that, it's like she's probably just trying to get Athena not to review the details of the case because like she wants to get out scot-free. So
It seems like they're trying to do like a Maddie and Sue Blevins type thing with this, like, you know, Athena's lieutenant,
and that just
or
doesn't
whatever.
apply.
It's like
doesn't
flirting
apply.
versus harassment.
She could never be Sue Blevins.
It's like
Ever.
flirting versus
She could
harassment. It's
never.
like Sue, when Sue does it, it's cute. When Captain Maynard or whatever does it, I'm like, get off the screen right now.
Get a job.
Especially since
Stay
she
away from
basically
her.
tells her immediately, and also, nothing's gonna happen to these
No,
guys.
okay. I have so many questions about this whole exchange because, yes, Maynard, the boss, walks in and says, you know, Athena, I'm going to push for disciplinary action, but realistically, there will probably be no real consequences. And it's like, wait a minute, like, whose job is it to hand out the consequences? Why can't you do anything?
Yeah, don't you have any power? Any power at all? Don't these are your cops. These are your beat cops that are patrolling the city under your jurisdiction, you know?
I get that there's like a chain of command. I get that, like, I'm sure there's somebody above Maynard, but it's like, why are you coming in and telling me, like, yeah, so by the way, like, I'm gonna recommend this thing, but probably nothing will happen. It's like, why? You're
Also,
the boss. Why can't you do anything?
Fully complicit, but also we'll say it needs to be said that, like, even the thing she's quote unquote pushing for is suspension without pay.
No, literally.
What kind of punishment is suspension without pay? You should work for firing and loss of pension if you want to get out of this episode unscathed, Maynard.
Literally. Fucking Maynard. I never liked this lady. I'm sorry. She has this line later where she's like, okay, so Athena has been doing research, and she's like, Reynolds, who is the older cop, the one who is really, like, leading the charge in this horrible traffic stop, she's like, Reynolds has a long list of complaints from over the years, like, all for you know, unlawful search and seizure, all of these racially charged things. Most of the complaints are from Black and brown people. And Maynard says to her, like, honestly, this is probably gonna go away too. And it's like, what?
Why?
What do you mean? Like,
it was just unearthed.
Why are you acting
Like,
why are you acting
The
like you
LAPD
have no control
read that
over this?
script and said, I love this.
I was so confused by this interaction. I was like, if you're gonna do this kind of thing, why would you have, like, there probably is some technical explanation for, like, oh, she doesn't get, like, the final say in this. There's, like, a higher up person who does. But it's like, why in this scene would you have Athena's boss come in and be like, yeah, like, some nebulous they are gonna let these guys off, and apparently I can't do anything in this situation, even though I am allegedly in charge.
But Kyla, like you just spilled, because the LAPD saw this and was like, wow, if rando Mike Huckabee lookalike can, you know, bury his evidence, then I can too, and so can you. It was embarrassing.
It's just very odd. So that was my big thing with this scene, is like, why would they even include it, honestly? This whole episode is like, why would they include that?
I wrote down, wow, Mr. Anti-Vax was in fact right. Like, Michael, once more, is being proven correct.
Hello.
Once again.
Mm-hmm. His foresight was endless.
So we cut to Eddie and Lena watching a
oh my god
question mark
no
Fight
sorry
Club?
The tonal dissonance of this episode.
No, I know this episode's weird.
It's so egregious.
This might as well be the Joey Jeremiah trying to sell his house while the school shooting is going on at Degrassi episode.
So sorry. Like, number one, you could not tell me that they didn't do this storyline purely because they had Ronda Rousey there. And, like, I get it.
100%.
I get it. If I
For a second,
Ronda
I thought you meant the
Rousey-
police brutality thing, and I was like, is there something I don't know about?
Rhonda, her past unearthed. Sorry. No.
I mean, I think the only truly bad thing she did was not believe that a school shooting happened. But she changed her mind.
There's the
she
Sandy Hook
educated
thing.
herself.
I've heard other weird things about her, like somebody in my comments was saying something, but yeah, she did apologize for the Sandy Hook thing, so at least there's that.
So I'm gonna meet her where she is.
Yeah.
But like, okay, Kung Fu Wolf bitch, like, what's going on? Why are we going from Athena grappling poorly with the fact that her profession hurt her family, and then it's just like a fight club?
Yeah.
Like, this is a fight club? And also, I'm just gonna be real for a second, what's Eddie that mad about?
No,
Eddie,
literally.
what are you mad about?
Literally, let's talk about
The
it.
birthday boy! The birthday boy!
Okay, what I meant by this being the start of Eddie's really poor writing is they try and do this arc where Eddie has anger issues and starts fighting in an illegal fight club and like spirals out of control. And my biggest problem, we are told in this scene that Eddie has anger issues, right? Lena's like, you've clearly got anger issues, like punching that guy in the face earlier. That was weird. And it's like, my problem is that this is just so underdeveloped. Like, I think they do not spend enough time building it up or like showing us Eddie's motivation for having anger issues. We just see him punch that guy in the face, and all of a sudden it's like, Eddie, you have anger issues. And I was thinking about this morning about why I don't like it. And I think part of it is like, I've talked at length about why I don't think Eddie was set up to have great characterization. But in season 2, like, of all the things you can say about Eddie, one of the things you could say about him is like, he is introduced to us as like a cool, calm, and collected character. It's kind of his whole thing he has going on. And also,
it's his thing in season 4 too.
Right.
In season 4,
it's kind of his whole thing.
Like, I don't believe in anything else. I just believe in what, like, the freaking cross around my neck for my son, and that's it.
Well, yes, he also later is depicted as he's a skeptic. He's very rational, very grounded. But like in season 2, it's like he is supposed to be a contrast to Buck's hot-headedness by being like, he just keeps his cool, he doesn't get angry, whatever. So I feel like if they wanted to do an Eddie anger management storyline, they really, in order to sell that, they would have really needed to like work on the groundwork of building that up and really show us the motivations very plainly. And yes, Eddie has had some rough things happen in his life recently, like his wife died and then his son has been struggling with these nightmares, but that's not enough to show us like the connection, like point A to point B. One of the most annoying types of comment I've gotten on my 911 video is people would get mad at me for like saying that I don't think Eddie's very well written, and their argument would be, well, the anger issues didn't come out of nowhere. Like, he was upset that he like couldn't talk to Buck in the lawsuit and Christopher was struggling and his wife had died, and it's like, or when I said something about like his PTSD storyline comes out of nowhere in season 5, people would be like, it didn't come out of nowhere, Eddie was in the army. And it's like, okay, yes, there are technically things that happened in the story that can have those effects, but like, this is a story, like, we need to see how we got from point A to point B. Like, we need to see...
there has never been a through line for any of Eddie's character arcs.
Right. It's not enough to just say that he literally textually has these things going on. We need to see like the journey he goes on emotionally from his perspective, and we almost never do.
Because like, what are you mad at? And are you mad at water? Like, are you mad at that? Like,
He's mad at
that girl from last season who hit like Shannon? Because you didn't even seem to be mad at her at the moment. You just told Shannon to be silent as she was dying.
Exactly. It's like we have never seen Eddie struggle with anger before, and so I think they would have needed, like, I guess I'm thinking about how like in other shows, if someone is going to have like a mental health storyline or something, I feel like you start small, right? You start with little things, like maybe, you know, like even like in the last episode, I guess our episode hasn't aired yet for you, Kyla, so you haven't heard us talk about it, but like in our last episode, there's like the episode is called Triggers. It's all about being triggered, and there's a moment where like Maddie drops a plate and it shatters and she gets very triggered about her past with Doug. It's like we never get a moment like that with Eddie, where it's like maybe we see him like really overreact and get mad about a little thing in his life, but no, it immediately escalates to like, I punched a guy in the face and got sent to jail, like, and now I'm at a fight club. It just seems so like the buildup is not there.
And it's also just like, I don't know, I feel like it would have just been so easy. Like, all they needed to do was like just show like Eddie maybe snapping at work, or maybe even like Eddie doing like slightly snapping at Chris, and then he like immediately feels terrible,
right?
And it's like, I need to join a fight club to get this anger out because I can't yell at my son.
I have to say that's a good point, because like for all of this telling about how he has anger issues, like we never actually see that bleed into his life at all. So it's kind of weird on that level. But I also had a thought while watching this. I was like, it's kind of weird that Eddie is presented as like a totally gentle parent and then also has these anger issues. I'm not saying I wanted them to have him like get mad at his son, but it does seem kind of weird that if you're developing something like that it just never connects to any other parts of his life.
That would be the ultimate Eddie assassination. Like if he just like started being really mean
abusive
to Christopher.
Oh God, yeah. It's like I don't
him
want
and
to
Christopher
see.
just beefing next season.
It's like I mean, they kind of were in season 8. It's like I don't want to see that necessarily. But it's like you just said, Kyla. Like seeing him maybe like snap at him a little and then apologize and realize like, oh man, like something's really going on with me. Like something to show that it's actually something he's struggling with.
Yeah, that's not enough for me. I think he should have punched Buck. I think he should have like
the way the Buck Tommy shippers would have never let us hear the end of it if there was a part of this show where Eddie punched Buck.
Oh
my
God, that'd be so terrible.
Let's just all take a moment to be grateful that has never happened.
Honestly, yeah, because I mean, as a Chimney stan, I have had to like defend him.
His name was raked through the mud,
like from when he punched Buck in the face, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I need everyone to be real for a second. Forget Oliver Stark. Look at this written down on paper. If you find out that number one, your wife wanted to kill herself, your wife. Like your daughter almost drowned, and then your wife then ran away because she was so like traumatized and going through that, and then you're like freaking out, and then you find out that your coworker friend and her brother knew, and he was just like, well, that's just how Maddie is, you know, she loves to run away. And I'm like, I would punch him in the face too. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Chimney's daughter could have died, and you're sitting here in his face saying, well, it's just what Maddie does. She runs away. Like,
no, I basically agree with you. And I also think just at the end of the day, like, it is just a TV show, and sometimes drama happens on TV shows, and like, I don't think we have to. I just sometimes think the fandom can get so caught up in like the very literal, like black and white moralizing of every action on the show. And it's like, obviously it'd be different if like Buck and Chimney were in a romantic relationship or something.
Yeah, but like that's his brother-in-law.
Yeah, just like a brother-in-law punching another character. Like, I just don't think that's irredeemable on a TV show, you know? It's like these things happen for good drama. And if I'm being honest,
I don't even think it was bad.
No, yeah, I appreciate that perspective. I recently people were discoursing again about the Kim storyline in season 7, and I'm sorry, but the way 911 Twitter talks about Kim, you would think she like killed Eddie.
You would think that she assaulted him.
Yeah, literally, that's how people talk about it.
And you would think that like for her makeover, she like exhumed Shannon, like skinned her, and like made like a mold of her face.
Except, let's be real,
she saw a picture.
Let's be real. The people who hate on Kim are not doing it for Shannon's sake, right? They're mostly people who hate Kim. And
we're
Shannon.
Doing it for Shannon's sake.
And now listen, but do I hate Kim? Yeah, I think that's an insane person. But no, I also think that Eddie was insane simultaneously.
Exactly. I think people
they
don't
found
acknowledge...
each other, guys. They found each other.
No, I'm sorry, but low key, one of Eddie's best romances on the show, just in a freak for freak kind of way. But also, that's just a truth nuke. I'm sorry. Also, I think yes, people will act like Kim did this insanely immoral thing by going over there and kind of continuing this thing, even when Eddie was asking her to stop. But they do not acknowledge like Eddie's behavior throughout that entire storyline, where he was emotionally cheating on his girlfriend, and he really led this woman on for no reason and sort of brought like before she ever started enacting some weird emotional role play with him without his full consent, he was
doing it to her.
Exactly. Yeah. He was kind of bringing her into this web of his like emotional role play without her consent or knowledge. And I'm not saying either. At the end of the day, it's just a dramatic moment on a TV show, and I feel like it's not that serious, to be quite honest. But like, even if we are acting like it is, I kind of feel like in a way you could almost see it as like Kim kind of getting back at him for what he did to her. And it's like when people baby Buck. It's like you are babying Eddie if you're acting like he was the poorest victim in the world in this scene. Couldn't
Like, the
defend
only
himself.
victim in this scenario is Chris, because he
Yes.
got
Literally.
traumatized.
But hey, that
Like-
college admissions essay is going to be crazy.
It's gonna be fire.
I'm saying, I can't imagine, like, reading the scripts, like, knowing that Gavin was gonna move, and just finding out, like, oh, so that's how I'm gonna.
That's how it's gonna go.
Like Sabrina,
God
Greer, like,
forbid he
oh.
like go to boarding school for a year or like
I
don't
literally,
know.
like, one time I got, like, really drunk, and I wrote a fan fiction of how I felt like this should go instead.
Aw.
And I'm like, Chris went to a science boarding, like, a science-specific school where he's learning about all the stuff he really likes. He's on a scholarship. And then Eddie's still going through it season 8, but he's going through it because his son is at a boarding school.
Mhm.
Yeah, you could
And he's,
still
like,
have a lot of the
visiting
same storylines.
Yeah, like, he'd still have those same issues. He'd still have to, like, deal with Chris probably not wanting to talk to him as much because he'd be, like, a 15, 16-year-old in boarding school. You don't want to talk to your parents. You're living with your friends. Like,
So
Yeah.
Kyla, we will be trading fics after the session, but
I'm down.
I do have to I do want to rein this in a little bit and bring it back to the
Oh,
episode
yeah.
with
Yeah, sorry.
with a little thing to say that we are at the Coliseum scene, essentially, right?
Lena and Eddie are at the fight club. It's apparently like a legal fight club where they like don't hit to hurt each other too bad. That's what it seems like. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah,
Because
they pull
Eddie
their
calls it
punches
like
a
a
little
fake
bit.
fight club at one point. And so Lena gets up and she starts fighting because, like you said, it's Ronda Rousey. She's a fighter. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, I had a
And
moment where I was like, why is Lena getting up? And I'm like, oh, right. It's Ronda Rousey.
Now, it's like whenever they make Jennifer Love Hewitt sing on the show. It's like, well, that's a skill she has, so you might as well let her do it. But on second thought, when she got up and started fighting, I became unsure, like, how legal or fake this fight club is supposed to be, because Lena is, like, slamming the guy's head into a car. She's, like, punching him in the face over and over again.
Pinning him
I think
on the ground.
I think it might be different rules because of the difference in size.
Maybe.
Because he's like
Ooh.
he's like at least 2 apples taller than her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she
Okay,
like
well-
she like throws him over her shoulder. I really liked this scene.
And then she's just wailing on him until like the referee says, "Okay, you can stop."
yeah.
And she's like, "All right."
It was so good. And then everyone chants, "Boss, go! Boss, go! Boss, go!
And I was
Boss,
just
go!"
thinking about Bosco sticks. I was just thinking about elementary school Bosco sticks as they were chanting that.
Yes.
It was.
I have to call attention to a funny little production note that like they really couldn't have found better canned punching sounds, could they? Because
I didn't even notice it, honestly.
the punching sounds were like so cartoonish in the way that they were like mixed in like the audio tracks, that like they were like louder than they had any right to be without like any of the actual like weight in the choreography, and so it felt so like discordant with like what was happening on screen that I was just like, oh my god, she's like a Bugs Bunny. Like, you know, she's like beating his ass.
Right.
Cartoon violence.
We cut to Bobby and Michael are at home talking, and they're kind of, Michael, still giving the performance of a lifetime, is like going through all of his complicated emotions about this. He is reckoning with how he's gonna talk to Harry, because he, you know, Bobby makes a comment about like, I foolishly kind of thought that we were past that, like I thought the world had changed, and Michael's like, it's not just you, I had gotten too comfortable, you know, I didn't really have my guard up the way I normally would. And he's thinking he really didn't want to have to give Harry like the talk about how to carry himself around cops, but he's realizing he's gonna have to.
Yeah, it's an interesting sentiment. First of all, that Bobby's expressing, because I think it speaks to like where a lot of like older white liberals like were in their social consciousness at this point in time, like pre George Floyd, pre May June 2020, when like BLM was like talked about by everyone, and there was this like assumption that like, if we put our blinders on, it's not really happening. And it takes like a moment of like constructed reality being shaken to like see, oh no, this is actually still a huge problem.
Yeah, or just if they've never been like personally affected by it.
And so it was an interesting bit of like self-awareness on the part of,
well,
like,
and I think like in isolation without everything else that happens in this episode, it's kind of a nice scene. Like
Yeah,
it would
definitely
be a kind of nice scene between the two of them if it weren't for everything else.
Michael's what he says here I thought was very interesting, where he's like relating to what Bobby's saying by saying, I have a stable, well-paying job. I am or was formerly married to a police sergeant, so I had my own sort of comfort blanket. And because of that, he feels this like interesting sense of like guilt about the stop because of specifically the effect it's had on his kids, and Harry specifically. And yeah, I was dwelling on that. I'm like, this guy's like really going through it. And Bobby is over here, trying to be ally of the year.
Ally.
And, he's doing a fine job. I do think when we see Michael and Bobby being friends, those are like some of the better Michael moments.
Yeah.
I like that they're supportive of each other.
Yeah, definitely. You had a note for the end of the scene, Kyla?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say I wrote down for when Michael said, "I'm happy that if something happens to me, they have you." I was like, ha! Now they don't have. Now they have no dad.
Ooh. Oh no!
That's crazy.
I wasn't
even
thinking
occur to
about
me.
that. Oh no!
Don't have a dad now. Michael's in Florida, never to be seen again.
Our gay dad is in Florida, and our stepdad fucking died.
That is kind of iconic of Michael, written out of the show to go party with his gay lover in Miami or wherever.
Gay husband, excuse you.
Hey, husbands can be lovers too.
So true. That's beautiful. But then we see Michael sitting Harry down to give him the aforementioned talk. And I think it's, again, like in isolation, a moving scene. And it also, in the context of the episode, again, really lays bare the hypocrisy, like that. Like, how can you on the one hand say that this is like a not all cops problem, and on the other have a situation where Michael has to sit Harry down and explain that cops will like systemically treat him differently? And I just think that's really contradictory, and it kind of pains me all the more in this episode. It's just sad.
Yeah, I mean, I think the scene's done really well, and I like that, like, in that moment, you can see in Harry's head him preparing to read Athena down throughout the rest of the show.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, and he's like, oh, so mom has, like, really shaky morals?
Yeah, literally.
Harry and May like, being radicalized by the reality of life.
No, literally. Radicalized against their mom. Because it really is like, I can imagine it's already like incredibly confusing and like world altering for like a Black child to like hear that sort of thing for the first time. Because you see Harry like trying to grapple with the very idea of racism. Like he's like, but you didn't do anything wrong, Dad. Like, so why should you have acted differently? And he says, like, I know I didn't do anything wrong, but, you know, they might treat... And then Harry says, like, but how am I different or something? And Michael's like, you're not, but people might treat you differently. And so it seems like almost the first time Harry's really thought about being treated differently because he's Black. And then to
let
add
me tell
to
you,
that,
that's a crazy... To me personally... That's a very crazy notion in this show specifically. Like, are you telling me that Athena's mom never told Harry, like, anything regarding that? That woman grew up in Florida.
Right. We do know that Athena and her mom are kind of estranged, so maybe she, like, doesn't let the kids spend enough time.
I mean, Harry's living in L.A. You know, you're gonna tell me that, like, Harry living in L.A. is, like, it's like hearing that racism exists for the first time when he's 10.
Well, I guess I'm not saying that he's like hearing that it exists for the first time, but maybe sort of grappling with his own personal experience. But yeah, even that seems. But I guess what I'm saying is to add to that, the fact that his mom is a cop and he's hearing this thing about cops would just be like, yeah, how do you reconcile that, especially in like your more simple child brain where you very much do just think of like right and wrong, good and bad. Like, I can't imagine. Like, this is rough, and again, just lays bare the show's hypocrisy, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
And also, okay, I'm sorry, I had a note about, they are talking about cops like they're easily spooked grizzly bears or something.
Yeah.
Which they are.
Oh my
Which
God,
they are. But like, think
literally.
about the way in this scene Michael is like, okay, just like don't make any sudden moves. And you know, you might be more scared of them than they are of you, but they don't know that. They can't understand that.
It's like beyond
like,
a grizzly
be very
bear. Like they're
slow.
like the T-Rex in Jurassic Park. Like nobody
Right?
move a
And
muscle.
I just and yeah, and I realized that this is a real thing, and like he's not wrong that is how you have to behave in this situation, I guess. But I was just thinking like that as a concept is so absurd, and the
Yeah.
fact that the show isn't self-aware about that is so absurd. And I was just, and yeah, I also wrote this conversation would be touching if we didn't know the show's like larger stance on cops.
I mean, the show is like it's constantly giving voice to like this idea of like a few bad apples, right? That's like the metaphor that's been, you know, pounded into the ground at this point, just in culture. And like I'm like reminded of like that thing like John Oliver said on his segment on police violence, where like he pointed out that like the whole metaphor is a few bad apples spoils the bunch, you know. They don't want to talk about the spoiled bunch. They really don't. And even in this scene, there's like a moment where like where Harry asks like, "Are all cops that way? Are all cops that way?" And Michael's like, "No, but some of them are." And like even that sort of felt like it was kind of parroting that point that the show
Yeah.
is unrelenting on.
I
Because
just feel like you can't have both. Like it can't be
Yeah.
just a few and also enough of a problem that you have to sit your child down and have this talk.
yeah, it's
And
like
that's where the show feels disconnected from reality.
Yeah, it really does. But the performances in this scene are, again, fantastic. Rockman Dunbar is still giving his, you know, series best. And I think Harry's performance, his actor, is doing a fantastic job as well.
Yeah, I think he's pretty good, but of course he will be recast eventually, so don't get too attached to the performance of Harry's actor.
Another I don't know. I mean, I like Harry's new actor too. I think he's good. But like
I love that both of them can read Athena down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Literally.
But it
then
needs to
we
be
get-
pointed out that the recasting occurred in season 7, Jane's favorite season.
Listen, I honestly might dislike season 8 more now, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Have to do the full rewatch first. Anyway, we cut to Athena. Athena, quote unquote, taking action, I suppose. Maybe what the episode description meant. Athena pulls over the older cop, Reynolds, who is driving he's off duty, driving in his regular car. She pulls him over and she does like a sobriety test. She thinks he's been drinking because he's like leaving his favorite bar. He has been drinking, but we don't
He
really know
admits
how
to
much.
it. Like he's like
Yeah.
I've had a few beers, you know. And he's like
Yeah,
this
just-
I mentioned he looks like, you know, like Mike Huckabee but bald, which is true. But like so I guess like that like excuse is like, well, I can hold my booze. My blood alcohol content is 0.03 or whatever. So it's legal. But she, you know, does the sobriety test on him, the walking in a straight line, and he's being very dismissive about it the whole time, very glib, and you see the absolute contrast with the way that he is able to navigate these interactions, not just as a cop but as a white man versus
Right, he gets to be like,
scene with
he
Michael.
gets to be like, is this really necessary? Like, whatever. He's gets
rolling
to
his
kind of have an
eyes,
attitude about it.
like
Yeah.
disrespecting her.
And at some point he realizes that this is Athena, the, you know, family member of the people he pulled over. And Athena kind of taunts him about it and kind of gives him a bit of a talking to. She's like, see how humiliating it is? Like, see how this feels when you're on the receiving end? But then she just lets him go at the end of the scene. And there are still no real consequences. Like nothing.
None at all.
Nothing. None at all. This is like the last. This is like where we leave it.
She could have arrested him and written him up for a DUI. I mean, like Athena.
I could have used
Athena
like
Grant
in this storyline.
is no stranger
used in this storyline like
the law.
whatever True. I could have used in this storyline like kind of an Athena goes rogue moment, or like at least considers it. Like kind of
And
what
honestly,
we're seeing
if we're being real, that would be a really good lead-in to Athena Begins in just a
Yeah.
couple episodes.
That's a good point. And I was thinking about like Maddie's storyline she's having right now where she kind of is like getting a little unhinged and like stalking this woman. I kind of would have appreciated something like that from Athena. Or, when Athena, remember the last time Athena tried to get revenge and she stalked a 15-year-old girl? I'm like, where's that energy for this guy, Athena?
Yeah, it's like I'll stalk this like 15-year-old, black teenager, but the minute it's a white man who works 2 cubicles down, I'm like, well, I guess I'll just embarrass him a little with no crowd.
I can excuse police brutality, but I draw the line at high school bullying. I feel like like if we had gotten a little arc where she like really kind of goes crazy and just like maybe like gun to his head, like drives him out to an empty field, covers him in gasoline, and then holds a lighter up to him like she's gonna light him on fire, but then like takes it back at the last minute and then leaves him for dead out in the field. Like that's what I would have done if I were writing this episode. And then because like a real like action thriller movie kind of moment.
Or she actually lights him on fire and then he comes back all singed and like but like completely unharmed, and he's in his like hellhound state, and then it's Jordan Parrish. It's Jordan Parrish, right?
Oh, it's Jordan Parrish. That's another idea.
Lou Ferrigno Jr.
I love him dying.
Yeah, the one good thing Lou Ferrigno Jr. ever did, lighting Jordan Parrish on fire.
God, I hate Jordan Parrish as a character.
Yeah.
See, it's like Lou Ferrigno Jr. setting him on fire was like heartbreaking. The worst person just made a great point. Anyway,
I mean, like I will say,
I feel like if they.
I was just gonna say that, like, in this scene, like Athena, like, I mean, even like she's like saying like what she's doing to him, like making it clear, like I'm doing this to embarrass you, and how embarrassing is this? And like even then, I was like, why do you gotta say that? It was like you could really tell the writers thought they were doing something with this scene by like making this guy like marginally more embarrassed than he was before, and that'll teach him, and that'll like, fix racism.
Well, on that note, it's not like the problem with the traffic stop primarily was that it was embarrassing. It's that it was like dehumanizing and threatened their lives and racially charged. So I feel like if they wanted to give Athena a little revenge moment, I would have needed it to be like way crazier and bigger like I described, or I would just need a very kind of more classic TV moment where she gets these guys in trouble and they get fired or something, like a Gerard moment, like at the very goddamn least, But no, this is like it, and they just never face real consequences.
And it's honestly very crazy when you bring up Gerard, because he was racially insensitive and he got fired. And, the LAFD approved that, and the LAPD approved this.
I mean, like, I guess
this is why people don't say all firefighters are bastards.
No, literally, I was gonna say, like, if I was going to be like the most, like, give the most benefit of the doubt to the show that I could, I guess it's possible that like fire departments as an institution might be slightly less institutionally racist than police departments as an institution, but it makes the show feel morally inconsistent, certainly.
But even then, like, fire departments have a long sad history of racism.
Right. It's not like they don't do
like
that
the
at
firefighters in Chicago all live in the same neighborhood, and that neighborhood was completely red on the election map.
I'm sure. It's like there is a lot of crossover.
That guy that died at that Trump rally was a firefighter. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's why it feels like it's morally inconsistent on the show's part.
And so, like, it is frustrating. This is how I know I'm in my Ramsay Bolton era, because, like, I wrote down in my notes, I want to see this guy skinned alive and strung up from the city gates. I
Athena
want to see his head on a spike.
Trap,
no,
but
seriously.
We didn't get that.
And I feel like any like actual like human person in this scenario watching that body cam footage, hearing about what happened to their family, emotionally they would want to put him in a saw trap.
Your
maybe
little
I'm wrong.
baby son almost got shot in the face by a cop.
Yeah.
And you like don't even seem to care that much.
Yeah. And that's what makes it even more egregious.
It's like, why does Eddie have anger issues in this episode and not Athena?
Athena should have been in the Coliseum.
Right? Athena
imagine if the
joining
episode ended with Angela Bassett being the one like doing a wrap up, like just beating everyone up in that like.
Yeah,
I'm sorry that would have been that would
This
have
is
made more characterization sense than
This is her.
Eddie.
This is her Birds of
Yeah.
Prey arc. She quits her job as a police sergeant to become a vigilante, fighting racism wherever she sees it.
Listen, that would not be
iconic.
the
Love
worst
that.
outcome for her. Yeah,
That would have been iconic. Been better than whatever we got this episode.
yeah. But back to the Joey Jeremiah selling his house side of the episode. The 118 are going grocery shopping.
And Bobby is running this shit like the goddamn Navy. Because if there's
I did
one
think
thing
this
he
was a
takes
cute scene,
seriously
yeah.
more than Buck's health, it's his groceries.
It's like they're responding to a call. He's like, well, guys, some mistakes were made the last time we were here. We're not going to let that happen again. First of all, we see like an exterior shot of the store. It's called Howie's Market. I was like, is that like a chimney in joke?
Oh.
It's called Howie's Market.
Jane, you mentioned earlier in the episode that Athena was going full gaslight gatekeep girl boss this episode, which I agree with. And I think there's a case to be made that in this episode, in the storyline, Bobby is going full manipulate, mansplain male wife.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why they're perfect for each other. Come on.
Freak for freak. Yes.
Freak for freak in a bad way. Yes, so Cap is giving everybody their grocery store missions. He's like, you know, Eddie, Bosco, like, you're on meats and deli, whatever. Which, okay, this episode has grocery store deli representation, which is representation of my profession, so I enjoyed that.
This is Jane's organic grocery store. They're going to her deli. Like, she is getting,
they were at
like,
the deli. I was like, oh, look at those containers of soup. I know this place.
a cut of Black Forest ham. Yes.
Exactly. So I kind of forgot this episode was the one with the iconic grocery store scene.
This is what I'm saying. Why it's so bad that there's this giant elephant in the room with this episode, because this scene is so iconic. And then people go to watch this great buddy scene and they're like, oh my God.
What is the rest of this? Yeah, we see Eddie and Lena are at the grocery store deli. Very exciting for me. And they're kind of talking again about the fight that Eddie got into, and apparently the guy decided not to press charges. I wanted to say, because earlier, Ryan, you were talking about like, oh, well, the guy was in a leg brace. We actually find out in this scene that Eddie's like, the guy's surgery was like 3 years ago, which was like, on the one hand, he could still have like a chronic problem from that. But yeah, he was kind of making it seem like he just had surgery on his leg. And
I'm just a little guy. I'm just a
they
little
make it
guy.
sound
I'm
like
also
a
in a leg
scene.
brace. I'm just a little leg brace boy.
Well, I think they also mentioned that the guy had like gotten in other altercations like that before, so it almost kind of makes it seem like maybe it's like the porch pirate or something, where
My
he's been, like,
5'8" boyfriend goes around to everyone in handicap spots.
Like, it seems like he's made, there's almost a slight implication that maybe he's been intentionally provoking people to hit him so that he can, I don't know, like get payouts or something. I don't really know what the implication is there, but okay, I'm sorry. Kind of another weird political straw man in this episode.
Yeah.
There's like this guy who's like faking being disabled, so the show says, who like gets mad at Eddie for parking in the handicap spot, even though can't he see that even though Eddie doesn't visibly have a disability or isn't with his family member that has a disability in that moment, he should have known better than to call out Eddie.
And also, I just want to say, I didn't bring this up at the time, but when I rewinded that scene a couple of times, and unfortunately, well, I guess kind of fortunately, Eddie's kind of wrong on all fronts. Like, that guy doesn't even, like, that guy does not make fun of Christopher. He says,
yeah, he just
like,
doesn't
believe him. He says, oh, I bet you're one of those guys that has a dummy in your passenger seat. He's like,
you're calling my kid a dummy?
And I'm like, okay, so that says more about you than him, because he didn't
that's
even
kind of
imply that.
out of character moment.
Obviously it is,
you know,
it
plot
is
holding.
annoying. It is annoying. Like, you know, it would be annoying, but like he could have, you know, not escalate. I get that he's supposed to have anger issues, but like prior to that scene, we never saw him have any anger issues. So it just feels like he did that really unnecessarily. I don't know. Anyway, we hear this episode is weird. We hear in this scene that I guess the guy isn't pressing charges, so I guess it's all fine. And then we see Hen and Chimney are shopping, and Hen sees Buck. What is Buck doing here? He doesn't usually shop here. His apartment is like 8 miles away. So they're all like, what are you doing here? He's like, no, I was just doing some shopping. I was just he like grabs the first thing he sees off the shelf, and it's like a pack of cat laxatives. And they're like, you were buying cat laxatives? And he's like, yeah, I was thinking about getting a cat. And Chimney's like, and you're anticipating that your hypothetical cat will be irregular. It's funny.
How are Stanley's bowel movements doing, by the way?
Stanley's bowel movements are great. He did have a period a while back where he was like throwing up a lot, but he's good. Stanley is my cat. But I think he was just like eating too fast or eating too much grass when he went outside, but he's been doing well. And he only goes out on a leash. So nobody get mad at me for like, oh, he's destroying the local bird population or he's going to get hit by a car. We let him out to roam in the yard on his long leash. Buck admits that he was actually trying to apologize. He's here to apologize. And Eddie is the only one who responds to it. He starts pushing back and he just starts ripping into Buck. He's like, you're exhausting. We all have our own problems, but you don't see us whining about it, which, okay. I feel like if you try and criticize Eddie for this scene, people on Twitter will get mad at you. But like, I do think he was being kind of unreasonably mean here. However, I don't really care because it's such a fun, dramatic, and homoerotic exchange where Eddie like accuses him of being a deadbeat dad. So I think both things can be true. This fandom struggles so much with nuance. You can't just say like, yeah, Eddie was being a little unfair. It has to be, no, Eddie's our perfect baby who would never do anything wrong. It's like, God, can we just be normal?
Well, what's funny, and I'll probably talk about this in the Patreon episode that's coming up, but like this scene, like this rapid escalation from Eddie to like just pure violence only works if you read it as like not just homoerotic, but like just like intentionally like these feelings he has are so intense, like beyond everyone else because he's in love with this guy, right? Like that's the only kind of reason this like 0 to 60 moment works, you know?
Hey, can I also say something? I think that him being gay is the only thing that makes this anger make sense.
Yes.
And kind of like, yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Like he's holding everything in and he doesn't even realize he's holding everything in. And then like just things happen and he's just like that. I mean, if they cared about him or his storyline, that's what would happen. But they don't.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. Potentially, we will be saying more about that on our Patreon sometime soon. But yeah, Eddie, like, when it starts to get really gay is towards the end of this. He's like, do you know how much Christopher misses you? He plays the baby card, right? And he's like, I couldn't even call you because you're not around. It's like he's accusing him of being a deadbeat dad. And then he says, I couldn't even call you to bail me out of jail. And everybody kind of looks at him like, what are you talking about? And he goes, if that was something that happened.
I love I love what they do here, like cinematically, like with the car wreck happening. Because while Eddie is going off on Buck, we see a fender bender happening in the back, and these two guys start to escalate their
subtly,
fight.
And no one acknowledges it.
No one acknowledges it, and it's like it's great leading into like what happens next. But it's also like it's like a visual metaphor for the clash between Buck and Eddie and the rage Eddie is feeling, and it's like, oh my god. Oh my god, subtext is a literary device.
It's also subtext that if they want to work out their problems, they should just dry hump.
Oh.
Well,
sorry.
yes.
I thought, okay, but then the fire hydrant, we'll get into it. Is it
a phallic symbol?
Well,
you could argue that, and it's sort of like an extension of Buck's fire hose metaphor, right? Symbolism.
I like that. I was also reading it as just like a very sort of like literal metaphor for like someone's gonna have to douche if they want to figure this out.
Okay.
But
that's kind of a different direction than I went in, but I appreciate that perspective.
But as the fight goes on, they start to notice this like this other thing happening in the back. They're like, well, the 118 is on the scene, because they go out to try and de-escalate things. The cars speed off. One of them tries to like jam into the other one like Mario Kart, and ends up like hopping like the curb and like running over a fire hydrant. Water starts spewing everywhere, and they're like, we got to get to work. And it's like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
I love that this car is getting the full bidet treatment. It is literally going on the car's ass and lifting it up into the sky.
Yeah, the water pressure is so great that the car is being like lifted up by the water. And we kind of just see Buck like fade into the background while everybody else gets to work, which is like the source of his insecurities, you know?
He's just so sad.
That's got to feel pretty bad for our Princess Diana here. But we go back to...
that's what this episode needed. A car getting ass blasted. Like that's just ties it all together. Just loves it. But we go back to... it turns out we have a different storyline going on in the background. That would have been great to have a lot of narrative attention instead of... the other
12
thing.
seconds.
The spacing of all this is pretty weird. We go back to Hen and Karen at home. Hen getting home. Karen is like sitting kind of despondently on the bed. And she tells Hen that she got word that actually none of the embryos that they had turned out to be viable. They all had like defects or like chromosomal things going on. And this makes Karen feel like it's her fault, like it's her body. She worries that she waited too long to like do this, and now, because you know sometimes these like genetic abnormalities, the risk can go up as the parents age, so I think that's what's being implied. And she thinks her body has been trying to tell her to give up, and of course she's really upset about it. So again, like you said, like this seems like a thing that has so much gravity that like it would have been nice to maybe spend a little more time on, but I know that we will like keep hearing about this in further episodes.
Okay, we'll keep hearing about it, but we won't keep seeing it. And that's my problem. I understand that Karen isn't necessarily a point of view character, and that Hen is the point of view character in their relationship, but like I would have really loved to seen, especially considering that Tracy Thoms is one of the show's most talented players. Let's lay that out there. And gives an incredible performance in this scene specifically. Like, I would have loved a scene of actually her going to the hospital and talking to a doctor and finding out about this and seeing her wrestle with that. Maybe that could have created a pathway for Tracy Thoms to become main cast. I don't know. Just throwing that out there.
I mean, I think we do start to see, I think we do see more of like Karen's depression, like as the season unfolds. But yeah, it feels like, why would they kind of relegate this big dramatic moment for Hen and Karen to this already extremely busy episode that already had a lot going on with other characters and was so unfortunate in its messaging? It's just, doesn't really feel like we got enough time with this.
Because that would have given Hen and Karen, you know, like a lot of attention in the narrative. And obviously Tim can't have that.
During Pride Month, no less.
During Pride Month. But back at the police station.
Oh God!
I
made a note that that little cop truly did believe the gingers are also black people thing.
Yeah.
Because the way he came over and he was just like, "I just want to let you know," and I'm like.
He's like, I want to let you know I'm a brother myself. I get it.
We'll talk about it at the cookout. Like,
oh God. So Athena is at the police station. The younger cop, the ginger cop from the traffic stop, comes to see her to apologize. And she says to him basically that she remembers being a rookie and how jumpy and scared and trigger happy you are, which, you know, surely has no greater implications for like the institutional failings of the police.
Yeah.
And she says it's natural to follow your partner's lead. Just don't follow it off a cliff. And I was like, so that makes it all the worse that the older cop didn't get any consequences for his behavior, right? Like, she's acknowledging here that like, you followed orders from your superior and he was being racist, and so you also got racist and jumpy. And then she just says, do better.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, that ought to fix everything.
How is he supposed to learn better if, like, that's
who's in charge of him?
Actual, like, and like he's not even being moved.
There was an
No.
episode of like the iCarly reboot where like there's this guy that goes up to them and like points out everything wrong they're doing and just goes, "Do better." And like that's like what it felt like this like non sentiment, you know what I mean?
I just can't believe no consequences for either of these guys is like just no change, no commitment to any change.
There's also a conversation that they like tiptoe up to about implicit bias that then they sort of like stop the scene before they can actually have it, because the cop says it was instinct, you know, and she says it was a bad one, right? But like there's no more interrogation on that point.
No.
Because obviously it would make the cops look bad, because these cops have a lot of implicit bias that is informing their homicidal tendencies, right?
Or like they train rookie cops to be extremely trigger happy, and it's funny because we get another storyline in season 8 about like this very thing where like Athena gets assigned
I hated that
was
storyline.
crazy,
So,
fucking crazy.
It was so insane to see like the fans making edits of him, and like I didn't watch the episode right
Those
away.
people are going to hell.
I like truly didn't. I was like, oh, is he gonna be like the guy that like takes over for Athena when she eventually leaves? I'm like, oh no,
Right.
oh no,
no. Yeah, and so they set up this thing in that episode of like cops, you know, some cops are jumpy and trigger happy, and it's like in both episodes nobody's like addressing the institutional problem of the fact that they train cops to be that way, because like you said, it's like that would make them look bad. So it's just this, it's like, again, they should just stop bringing it up at all.
Motherfucking Family Guy had a better take on this than 911 in that episode where like
so crazy.
they're like trying to like, you know, like they have like Joe like talk to that like, you know, racist Southern cop and say like, you know, when you're, you know, like when you have this responsibility, you have an obligation to be more morally upstanding than the average person, not less. And it's like, that's like, it's like more succinctly like summing up a point of like, well, if this is an institution,
McFarlane eating like that. Oh
he ate so hard in that moment, and it's like if motherfucking Family Guy is doing better than you in 2009, then it's over. It's over.
That's pretty bleak, yeah.
You know,
it's over.
It's Jover.
I don't know.
That's
So
terrible.
mercifully, at least this is like the end of this part of the episode, essentially. At least there's that.
No more
We can move on
terrorism
now.
this episode, thankfully. No more
like,
police
what we see
terrorism.
next-
Since I haven't
Yeah.
like seen this episode, I always like with the context that May has a video of everything happening. I almost thought like, oh, is it gonna end with May posting it?
That would
Like,
be
well,
iconic. That would be like
There's a
an
very
actual...
weird moment. There's a very weird moment, like in that scene in the aftermath of the event when the family are like are all arguing about it. May says, I got that on video, I'm going to post it. And Athena has this moment where, kind of like the thing I said about Maynard earlier, she is couching, she says like, no, don't post it. I don't want this to follow you guys forever. Like, I don't want all that attention on our family. But it feels like the actual reason she doesn't want her to post it is that she doesn't want that negative attention on the cops, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
So I thought that was weird that like there was no, it kind of would make more sense if at the end May decided to go against her mom's wishes and post it.
Especially with what May writes about for her college essay.
Right.
And
I was going to say, they do bring up a conflict between the two of them later in the season over May being more progressive than
Living
Athena.
with the enemy,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, which she is such an icon for that.
Such an icon.
Like that would have been a really dramatic way to introduce that conflict, right? If she had posted the video at the end. And it also would have made, from the show's perspective, it would have made the show's perspective feel less totally siding with the cops. I don't know. It would have like, continued that counter perspective.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a wasted opportunity.
100%.
But what we see next is Bobby taking Michael to the rage room.
The fucking
And he's
rage
taking the
cage.
whole
They're back
118.
to the rage cage.
They're back at the rage cage, and he has even invited Buck. So I guess he's really trying to turn over a new leaf, offer an olive branch. And first of all, we find out from Lena that this place serves alcohol, which is crazy.
Yeah,
But-
I'm not gonna lie to you. That feels illegal.
It feels illegal, but also like I'm sold. I would go.
No,
there.
I would go. I mean, when I,
I might
axe
accidentally
throwing, they
smash
had
my hand with a
alcohol.
sledgehammer, but
At axe throwing, they had alcohol?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. I applied for a job at an axe throwing place, and I never heard back.
Well, maybe you could have been serving the alcohol.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but Buck shows up. Yeah, and
Buck
he
shows up.
is
Bobby
being
tells him
reinstated.
Bobby tells him that the chief has reinstated Buck to active duty. And, you know, they just would rather reinstate Buck than deal with the headache of this lawsuit. And first of all, fuck the lawyer, because he was like convinced that that wasn't an option earlier in the episode. But Bobby says he had the choice to transfer Buck, but he's decided to keep him in the 118 so that he can keep his eye on him. And Buck's like, wow, thank you, I appreciate that. But Bobby's like, you might regret it because, you know, my house, my rules. Which, again, like, after the whole way Bobby has handled this thing, once again, it doesn't really feel like Bobby has the right to be all like, I'm gonna be tough on you now to Buck. But that is what's going to be happening for the next episode or two.
I'm going to bring my disobedient son to the rage cage and we're just going to hash it out here. We're going to settle it and smash.
It's an interesting choice, but, you know, maybe good and cathartic. Seeing that Buck just has his job back, I do think it's kind of crazy and kind of unfortunate that the lawsuit storyline literally only lasts one episode. Like, I feel like everybody forgets that. Everybody refers to it as the lawsuit storyline or like the lawsuit arc. But let's be real, it's just the lawsuit episode.
Yeah. No, but I referred to it as the lawsuit arc to my husband yesterday. He was like, how many episodes is it? I was like, well, I guess technically, kinda, like 1.5. And I was like, but it's really
an arc, right?
It's really a part of the fire truck on his leg arc, which started last season, which is also in part of the tsunami arc in the middle of it. And I was just like, and he was like, you're using arc too often.
Yeah. It's like, we gotta find a new word for this, right? It's like sub-arcs and layers. This arc is like an ogre. It's got layers, right?
It's true. It feels like it's an arc because it is kind of connected to these other things on the show. But I really feel like this is an example of the show's problem where they move on from things too quickly, because I think they had such an opportunity here to really stretch this out if they wanted to. They could have had like the whole first half of the season be this agonizing, drawn out, messy like in real life, lawsuits are usually long and drawn out and messy and painful, and this one is over in like one day.
I mean,
so
it
just
so are
feels
adoptions.
like a bit of a squandered opportunity.
You know, so are adoptions, and so are divorces and dying of illness and moms dying and
bisexual awakenings, perhaps.
Right.
But we get a unique moment of Eddie voiceover.
Oh my god!
Eddie voiceover.
Bewilderingly,
I'll just say
Eddie monologue.
I'll just say. First of all, he is defining rage. He's giving us like the dictionary definition
Quoting
of rage.
the
Remember
dictionary
that,
like some rube.
This episode
right?
is called Rage.
Webster defines it as an intense or violent form of anger.
All I'll say is that it's no step up all in opening narration. But Lena, we get like a tiny little moment where Lena hands Buck a sledgehammer, and just in that moment I was like, I kind of wish we could have seen these two be friends. But we don't.
They really got Lena out of there immediately. They're like, "Oh, Buck's back. Get out. Get out."
Or like once Eddie's, rage Fight Club storyline comes to a head, like that's when they get rid of her. And it's
he finds Buddha and Ronda Rousey has to go.
It would have been nice to have another female firefighter kicking around, but God forbid.
God forbid.
We get a few.
God forbid women exist.
We get a few cuts to other people from the episode. We see May and Harry are rewatching the video of the traffic stop. So again, it kind of feels like they're going to post it, but then they don't, as far as we know. And we get, like I said before, like a 1-second shot of Maddie in the car staking out the abusive couple's house again. It's like, whoa, you can't just throw that in there. It's like they're trying to remind us that Maddie's still alive and still exists, but it's kind of weird.
Yeah. And then you of course, see Eddie back in the flesh pits,
Well, of course, down bad Buck has to ask, where's Eddie? And Lena says, he said he had other plans. Cut to Eddie fighting at the Fight Club. This is just so ridiculous to me. It's like, so I get that this show is ridiculous, but this feels like one of the first times that like the interpersonal drama becomes ridiculous. Like, why is Eddie having a Fight Club arc? I just think that makes no sense and is so absurd and isn't built up well enough. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, it fully
Yeah,
is.
there's no lead up to it. And I'm sorry,
No.
the ending frame of him like screaming with the blood on
It's
his mouth, I was
it's
just like,
so Teen Wolf.
Yeah.
It's so Teen Wolf.
it literally felt like it felt like Derek in season two.
Yeah.
Right?
It felt like Derek in season two.
It's just like Eddie doing a Teen Wolf style slow motion roar.
Hey, not too much on his bloody roar though, because Eddie in this moment has never looked more Pookie. He has never looked more baby girl. I
mean, he
yes.
looks hot.
I think he has
He
never
does.
looked like better. Basically, I love seeing a man bloodied and violent and filled with adrenaline. You know, it's just
Right, but like I need a little more from the actual writing there. But yes, he does look cute.
I feel like we always say that with Eddie. He looks cute, but where's the script?
Where's the script? And that's where we end this episode about rage.
Yeah, it ends on a particularly salient line in an almost meta kind of way. This monologue that Eddie's talking about, he's going on and on and on about rage, giving counterexamples and different uses of the term, and then he ends on this line that I think kind of sums up this episode as a whole, which is, "Have we crossed a line we can't come back from?"
Yes.
The answer is yes. The answer is yes. Yeah, that is salient from the show to be so self-aware. The one thing I will say for this episode is that for being called Rage and being about rage, it is certainly an episode that makes you feel enraged.
Yeah.
And maybe that was their goal.
I mean,
if they wanted to make us feel rage, I think they succeeded.
Yeah, I mean, I was really, like, literally, the last note I made was, this episode should have never been made.
Yeah, no, my blood pressure was so high throughout this whole thing. I like felt my heart rate go up at various points.
Yeah, 100%. And
like, it was just, I mean, number one, it felt honestly almost, for lack of better words, like almost offensive to make Angela Bassett say these words.
100%.
Like,
I agree.
It
Insulting.
felt really like, I also just didn't like the way that they equated the rage that like Michael is feeling to like all of the other rage in the episode. Because like what Michael is feeling, I wouldn't even consider to be rage.
Yeah.
No,
like
I agree.
It's like a lot more like deep and like a lot more nuanced than that. But they're like framing it within this episode. Like, like this, like Bobby's angry at Buck. And this lady's mad that her friend slept with her husband, and Michael's mad because of racism, and Athena's mad that Michael's mad because of racism. Like that's how it's set up, and it's just.
It is wild because, like, you know, Michael is like the one character in this episode. I mean, you could argue Bobby has a right to be mad about the whole alcoholism thing, sure, but like that doesn't really hold a candle to like what Michael is feeling, which is, it's not, like you said, it's not rage, it's like righteous anger, you know what I mean, like genuinely righteous anger. And there's no equating the two things, you know. I don't know where they get off trying to do so.
Well, I mean, they get off of that because the LAPD needs to get them their stuff.
Yeah.
And there it is.
And I think it makes a lot of sense that they just haven't touched on this topic at all since. They mentioned
except for that moment in season 8, I guess.
Oh yeah. And
and it was bad that time too.
Yeah, it was terrible. And what made it really upsetting for me personally is I feel like 911 when it comes to like, you know, when it comes the season, I think it's season 4 when Hen's in medical school and there's something wrong with her mom, but they don't understand. And Chimney's relating to her, and they have a very much poorly written Degrassi like conversation.
And many such cases.
And with that, I understand because they're like writing this for a larger audience, and not every audience just might have the like prior nuances to understand what Hen is saying. Yeah. But they did such a terrible job with like framing this that there were so many edits of that like guy in season 8. Like there is so many, it was insane. They're like, yeah, but at the end, he looked like he was sad, and Athena felt bad for him. And I'm like, oh
Right.
my God, this
Or-
is not good.
It's just very strange how they keep doing, like, both of those storylines are so, like, trying to have it both ways, where they will show, like, an unambiguously awful, indefensible incidents of police violence, but then also try to keep having their pro-cop stance, and it just doesn't work. It's like, I think they need to either be pro-cop and not bring up things like police brutality and just pretend that the cops in this universe are fine, or like Athena needs to stop being a cop and they need to condemn cops, because like you really just can't have, I know they would never do the latter, but like in that case then they just need to stop trying to address things like this, because you truly can't have it both ways, and it just makes Athena look really contradictory and hypocritical. And I think in this episode in particular, it's infuriating because it's her own family and her own children, you know, and she can't seem to extend the appropriate amount of even just like personal anger and
empathy,
injustice.
Like, I don't even think that she like shows. I don't think like she
empathizes with the cops first.
I don't think she shows Harry any empathy specifically.
No.
Like,
she just does not seem. I guess if you were being charitable, you could say like she doesn't seem to be willing to engage really, like because she doesn't want to have to face the reality of the situation, which would be interesting if the show was like doing that on purpose to have Athena have a larger arc about it, but obviously they are not. That's just like the show's point of view
at all. They don't have storylines.
I mean, they do in these classic seasons, but not when it comes to like critiquing the police.
Actually,
you know?
in the earlier I'm thinking about now.
Right. Now they certainly would not. Okay, we have to wrap up this episode, you guys. Ryan has to edit this.
I do love how much we just like don't want to keep talking about this episode because it was such a negative experience.
We're done talking about the episode. All we have to do is wrap it up.
Like,
I'm so glad you're editing this one.
Thank you so much, Kyla, for coming on the pod. It has been an absolute joy. Where can we find you on social media to follow you and support you?
My socials on Instagram, it is Kyla.atr, which is my middle name, my maiden name. Ew, not maiden. And my two last names, which is Thomas-Rechsteiner, because I kept my last name. Yes. Hyphenated it. So Kyla.atr, and then on TikTok, where I don't really post, but I do comment a lot, and I love when people find me in comment sections.
Yes.
It's Kyla.tpwk. Which, if you're a Harry Styles fan, you know what that means.
Oh my God.
I'm very sorry for it.
Okay.
All right.
And I think we can all just conclude that this was a disappointment of an episode that moving forward, we will try to forget.
Yes.
On most levels.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can check out our social medias, and you can also check out our Patreon, which exists now. And we're currently voting on topics for what our next bonus episode will be. And so far in the lead is an episode making the case for and against Gay Eddie, just in time for Pride Month. So check that out.
First Respodcast, spelled how it sounds, wherever you get your socials.
Let's hope the next episode is a little less enraging. Am I right?